So I can check with the
You're sitting in the seat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, roads are wonderful.
I don't know. I don't.
Freeport Road is a state still.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Inbound anyway.
I'm not looking forward to it.
I'm sorry, outbound rather.
You're all right. You good?
Man, how are you? Another day.
I'm just trying to cast it. Slowly recovering from your eye stop space after your walk through the school.
Oh, yeah.
She, Emily sat down for a bit. She said, like, you're patient now. We're supposed to go there on Friday, right? And they invited, I think they said, for Wednesday.
I'm sure folks are pushing as well tonight. Their inspections go so good. So
What did I see?
I'll be here really early tomorrow anyway.
That's all.
Boys and girls basketball are, so I finally had a night and here I am.
Yeah, one of the best practices ever.
Yeah, last night. I figured, do I want to sit here or sit over there?
Okay.
So, we're trying to do videos.
The Indian girl,
You would have to. So every single came out, so it's 5 hours of watching videos.
Most of it's
I did something, I'm not gonna go through fast forward through.
So I have 10 miles when I get off this.
She's like, I don't know what I did. Well, you did something.
I think I gave you like an extra permission. Like I just matched you with somebody else, but didn't give you like his access, but just like gave you.
Oh, okay.
Once you drive supposed to, they just reached out to me, like, probably 2 hours ago, doing other buses. I did 3, so I seen it pop up, I didn't look at it.
I don't think I was. I didn't see one today.
She's just looking for an update.
I think because we told her today, we probably just told her today's the date, you know. Well, it might not be the right date. We're just gonna do it. Original deadline, right? Or can we?
I think we could put a PO in if it goes through today.
We had it out in 5 minutes, so I thought that's what it said.
Oh, the PO's in.
That was it.
Oh, yeah, I put them all in, right?
You know, because they were asking me for how, where in the sequence that I know it's very early.
Yeah, that's what they installed that. So we'll be good to go there.
Okay. Well, I don't think it'd be that quick. Could be.
Do you know why that other guy got fired?
Our other
Or
Steve.
Steve.
So, remember how he said, I have another, third-party person that will do the installation for you, right? So to us, I mean, what's it matter, you know? Well, I guess that he wasn't supposed to do that because he kind of took money away from Provision, right? So, he went in trouble with fire for doing it. So now you see how, like, the installation services are through Provision rather than that other company. Which
They were
other company
cheaper.
did a great job.
They did. Give them credit. Everything I asked them for, because we had to make sure everything was in the right position for state police.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
they
it.
did great. As long as they did the same.
Sorry for giving you guys some fun work these past couple of days.
Have you? I don't know if I've been,
Oh,
all with it the past couple
The
of days.
TV clicker,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
and then,
You never talk with that kid.
huh?
I'm hearing that kid's like, off the wall with.
Yeah. I also don't know.
He has no bad track, which is interesting.
Because I don't think he's actually.
Yeah, you think it's just all yours?
Or he's just doing nice job.
Yeah, or that. And then,
I have 2 over there, but there's not really that many people.
can't remember if we talked here or there.
See if I can go up there.
Last time we used
We're
to.
all gonna stand up there. I thought last time we did say, oh, no.
It's,
And we like just, we pass this around.
Yeah, it'll make them there, all of us standing there, and me speaking, and you guys say one.
Yeah, it would be more efficient if, because you're.
Well, what about if we would have got it at 2:30 that we were gonna? So my last, however long is, which I don't really gotta say much, but still.
But I know that.
Yeah, that's a
I've heard
good
from
thing.
Tim.
But they'll probably take.
yeah.
And the good thing is that they're trying to talk with opposite. So typically they're big on like have something on the podcast. Well, they all do, and
Exactly.
our leader doesn't have anything. They're senior, which is fine. Another thing. What a clear picture that is, huh?
It's Saturday. That's the day.
I'm just passing it off to Mr. Metzloff when it comes my turn, I'm gonna ask him to speak for me.
Okay.
That's okay.
That's fine.
Mr. Metzloff will take care of that.
I'll give them my permission for my talk on security devices to the kids.
I thought we were gonna go remote, it's not looking too great out there.
Not
Today.
And the temperature's drops.
Yeah, it's really good, and if our neighbors should get this.
Roads are bad.
The
Like
back
I was
roads in
saying.
Plum are good, like,
I'm
Well,
not looking forward to it.
Freeport Road's always bad, but it was at, like I was saying, it was a standstill. Like I pulled out of my, where I would normally make the lefty on the Freeport Road. Traffic was backed up to Howard Road that way, all the way into, like, past the get-go, into Waterworks.
Right, yeah, well.
Standstill.
Still snowing?
Yeah.
I moved my car. That was the only thing I really did.
The temperature dropped when the salt stops.
Yep. That's even better, because then the roads freeze.
I flew yesterday on ice. At my house. I guess the snow was melting off my gutter. And then it was like a straight line at my front door. I had all my stuff in my hand, didn't look down. At like 9 o'clock at night. Yeah.
She's scared.
My hip hurts really bad. So I didn't do anything. I literally just sat.
Because we put black gutters on
Mm-hmm.
because it absorbs the heat from the sun.
That's it.
We have white gutters in the house.
Yeah.
And freeze up salt.
I don't know where I mean, it just was coming straight down. I mean, it was a straight, like, line. I think, I looked at my ring, I didn't catch it on my ring doorbell. I just wanted to see it go down. Okay. It's like all that shouting.
He tells me that he goes, "You gotta do that one." Yeah. All right. He goes out all the way down.
Did you disable Safari on this house?
That was the highlight Jeff Davis told me about your truck.
For 11?
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was dying.
Which is bizarre, because you think if they had Chrome,
happened since.
it wouldn't do that.
He
But when I was
said-
reading on it, like
because
Fiverr
his doesn't
support is saying that it needs to
If
be
you hold it down,
enabled
it's
on the
just
iPad in
a
order for it to work.
I wonder if like,
Yeah.
it just like
For renewal.
short,
The only thing is,
shorted
like,
out
I
or
wanted
something
to
like.
see if this.
Cause I think I'm,
She is a-
you know what I mean? It's just swipe.
She had a Chromebook, not until last year, and then we gave her an iPad, she did that great. I don't know if it's on
I
her
started
iPad,
it. It's just,
but she doesn't have a
you
Chromebook.
do it, but you just slide, you don't hold it,
She
you
relies
just swipe.
solely on her iPad.
Heresy.
Yeah, something stupid.
Because it started up.
You gotta stop doing that.
You were waiting for those windows to go
She's
down.
the only one.
It doesn't really go down here.
My,
The thing what made it worse.
yeah.
Well, that was this morning, 4 kids on the way to daycare, like, cause those windows went down, she's in the back like, oh.
You don't need the back seat, which I've already
Is that
talked to her, all we need to do is just sit there.
No, come on now. No, not the SDX.
I like for them to defer to.
The SDX is nice because you get like a lot, but then you also, there's something, you know, it's like, it's sort of like a
You can send them all.
hodgepodge, you know?
I mean, maybe I'm not gonna say that. We're all.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure. I was reading some
Are you
forums,
recording?
you know,
I think
so
that might be.
I know that I can at one point upgrade.
Because it says Oklahoma Junior and Center Elementary. And that's it. Was it in Missy? It's not interesting.
Yeah.
I wish I could just cut it and just say it.
Yeah.
Bring him back. Where is he?
I could ask
It's like, listen, we need you. 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Back up like so.
He did it,
He did.
I know.
Yeah,
Chris
and
Brewer asked
and
him
you
to,
find
like,
out
do a
about the dogs,
meditation
that funeral came back.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
He did
Almost
it.
2
I don't
hours.
think
Did you hit that safe to
He
save?
told me.
By the time I got back,
You
it
just
was
hit
like
that safe
colder.
to save
Driving
by?
in the snow. We got home back then, it's fine.
Totally
So
inaccurate.
just go through
Because
our
on
day.
that it still says I was walking your high,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
almost formally, I was walking your high. So it's not
Yeah, I mean,
wrong.
We're looking at that very seriously.
I just turned it off.
There's always one.
Roads are wonderful.
So I said to him,
Did you go here too?
I didn't realize that you were not. How is
Yeah, this is true. This is true.
Actually, like, work out, we get in the
Turned off your phone at the front entrance.
First aid kit and then like a
We
commercial.
were like, I need some to eat, I need something to drink, it's like, so we started getting out, and before we even got
Oh, sir. Mike, what are you doing?
the end of the stop sign.
I couldn't find anything on your app.
That would be sheer road back.
That would not be.
Oh, really?
And that's.
Like anything bad about it.
I was
Like,
in my.
nothing good and nothing bad. But I would, honestly, I miss
I'm actually going to put this video on a couple things. Everything's down the road. And I'll get
And as soon as she was.
What game was?
when I was talking about it.
So there's a
So here's
round
the
about
next
a week ago.
Literally,
Problem is that's just out there. Which isn't much better.
So recommendation 4, how would you, quality?
They didn't let me know, they would have started like 5:45.
I'm just letting myself rest.
I like this one. It's like,
Good that they let us know.
That's not past 3.
Sounds about right. Good.
At least it's fun.
Very, very well.
yeah.
I wonder if it would be better for me to make the right.
I'll look it up.
Well, that's what I was talking about. If you make the right off right here, and you move around, like,
The other one's
I
Oh, that one's for you
can
to.
drive you right back to.
The one I'm
If you want to follow me, but like the problem is, steep curve up.
Yeah, I don't want to see, I'd rather
Yeah.
be,
You'd rather at least be heading
I'd
in
rather be
Yeah.
up and down to like
and not be able to go up.
pump and brake.
Yeah.
a little sentence like.
Because there's,
And crawling.
there's two turns that can be extra. One of them puts you,
Yeah.
you start sliding, it puts you down hills.
Yeah, no.
Formals.
I'm gonna go,
Like.
Yeah,
Probably
which is
do
nice,
sheer,
yeah, that's
Like,
nice.
they give me a count, like a 200-word count, 500-word count.
Yeah.
Hard credit, she was down there.
Like, a lot myself.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
how long does it take to get back?
Here?
Yeah.
Like,
You don't need someone to say, hey, let me look at this.
Yeah, so I'll just do it for you.
But on the other one, I think. I had to go through and try to do this.
Hey, have you,
You are. So
So
that's
say,
support to it.
I do that.
I'm pretty sure basketball has a cheerleader that was screaming at me as I was telling them.
They weren't screaming at me, they were screaming at me.
They were screaming at you via me.
What do you mean, sir?
Let's see. Figure out where they are.
Two different pits, actually, that's the only difference. See two. See two.
Put the mic back here, we're gonna be talking.
Good to Drew.
Scott, you don't want to sit in the front row?
I hate sitting all the way back.
Feel leader.
Yeah, that's why. I know, it's right.
It's
Well, not
I don't know if we're going basketball.
Sure, it's still or creative.
So they're not back yet, they're just.
But, so I smelled my phone twice.
But I'm not sitting in this chair. What's going on?
What happened to your
I don't think I broke it, but it's still, I'm not.
Yeah, it was probably already.
Don't you really well? It's kind of leans back into the left.
No, because we'll have. Yeah.
That's already happened.
Say, I'm like, now later.
Shut up.
You opened it. You
Shut up.
away for that one. I mean, you set yourself up. At least you can laugh.
What?
At least you can laugh.
That's why we gotta do it down.
You guys in the program studies.
What's that?
Maybe a little bit of research on this.
Yeah. I looked outside. Wow, the kids are so.
Yeah.
It's so funny because.
Yeah. But he was in, I saw him.
I'm glad that worked out.
I don't know 100% the sign.
That was.
I think
Yeah, I should do that. So it's like one is just key highlights, because that really just goes over the key highlights and changes made from last year to this year.
We're still 45 minutes away.
Yeah, they're
Here.
they just got on 66. I'm watching.
My coach. Get the fucking time.
What's that? The way she went like a breakdown, it's like I need to do that.
What?
There's
And then we're gonna hear about what we sound like this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't either, I think it's a good decision by you.
Glad you enjoyed that.
Are you aware of the medication?
Test.
How are you?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to talk to you.
Very good.
Sometimes apps make me funny things. Games, like games.
So,
Are we just goodness.
Not for that.
No, especially when it's crazy. You know,
so you might want to reconsider and or exercise.
It's not for me.
oh,
So yeah, now, that's like always.
I was going to tell you tomorrow, but then.
Well, things you would do whenever you don't stop.
you shouldn't have that.
I'm just screwed. The rest of us.
Hi, how was your time here? Like you just saw it go.
It was nice, man. I slept.
Not today.
Really?
All right, how you doing?
Not really.
Set up your you're supposed to put it down.
Good job. Hey, how are you?
Because I had to go pick up Sophia from my mother, and then it wasn't too bad. No, it was just and then in the last hour,
It was messy coming here. I was and then I had PTO. And the one mom told me it took an hour to get to the girl. I was like, why not tell me that I should go back that way?
I mean, I left at 6:10 because I texted Ashley. I was like, we can just remote. She's like, no, if you can't be here, I was like really chill, right? So I left. It took me 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It usually takes me 20 minutes.
Okay, that makes
It
sense.
takes me like 17 minutes.
And these roads weren't great.
And then there's some of them.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure anybody would.
Oh, there is. I want to ask them how
That's what's like, I wonder how many
I would like.
Yes,
Yeah, I would make sure that somebody had
I don't, a lot of research, so I get all
I would let you do it.
Probably one of those days where I want to be.
Yeah, that was like.
Yeah.
I was on my phone.
Most days I would have just,
concern.
yeah, caught me on the wrong day.
We miss each other.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so we're all there.
Sure.
And I don't care. Okay, yes. I don't know. And I really don't.
Yeah.
But anyway. You're all about taste. Yeah. It was parents and mess, big mess. And I just like
Yeah.
I know. I said, Emily, it doesn't belong in the building. Yes.
Yeah, right? Stay away.
I mean, it's never the answer.
It is. You gotta see. It's like watching Suits. Talk about Mr. Levin, so Harvin's like watching Suits.
But you get the answer, get pressed
I mean, he is educational Suits.
Yes.
That was a good show. Yeah, really.
I hope we all watch it before we can.
I watched it, and she's completely out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Relatively routine, but just the recovery of the kids and stuff. And it just makes it hard. We're a very low-key winter break for Christmas.
I know it is, I'm like waiting.
You stay centered. Very good. Yeah.
Yeah, some nerd buzz. Yes.
We tried. There's no shots we were making at the
Chili dog. Yeah, I'm sure that was.
That's him. You were asking
Establish that there's a new hurdle around the yeah, just like well, I don't think.
I mean, between the element, so that you're not on.
Go with the flow, right?
There's yes.
Okay, so,
That's fine. We can just send just like a little clip person talking.
you guys can do, you can be fairly close to have certain I think you guys are already on.
Both sides. Two, do you think that we should put another, if we do stay over here, another mic over here?
Yeah, we can take, someone not here. Yeah.
We can push the button for it to turn on.
Test. Is it working? There we go. Did you hear it okay? Yep, there it goes.
Is that so?
I might as well show you how to turn it on.
Would you guys be able to? No, I'm done. Do I pass it to you?
Done, you can give it to me. Yeah.
Personally? Just know you're the word. The merry-go-round. Good, help yourself. The merry-go-round. Actually, the second season.
I know, that's what I said, why?
Always.
Yeah.
I would have been able to show you
Always call the more handsome guy.
What, like this?
my position, you know, what I have for fencing, it's quick, and I'm like, I still have 10 days, sorry. Because I feel like, well, maybe rain or hot stuff, right? Like, it's,
Oh, yeah.
right, so I'm like, whatever. It was just,
Mr. Hockey all the time.
but my point being, like, I'm calling you to be like, hey, Mike, do you know what days I don't have fence sickness? Like, you would be like, what are you talking about? Like,
I would have no idea. I'm sorry, Michelle, we go into a different subject. We went from cheerleaders to pens.
You know, I'm like, what? Why am I calling him? That's not who I'm calling. What? I know, everybody's here.
You're the worst.
I am. I know, like, how are you?
Yeah.
I know, I can do it.
These are rare.
Well, it's okay.
I can't be responsible for the others.
On that side. Our side. So it's okay. Look over.
Pink Chinese brain pies. I don't need to after. It's gonna be like red nose.
You might need to walk Oh, are you?
You already played this time.
Oh, yeah. On Market Street. Yeah, I grew up real close to there. You know that? You know where that Portland Plaza is? I grew up in
Yeah, we should. What? You should cancel 5 days of morning. I need the morning time.
They'll be here first.
She's online.
I'm cutting on the table, like she's still not here.
Yeah, no, purple, not a purple, but yes, it's similar.
Okay, we're going to call to order the January 14th, 2025 discussion meeting. Please rise for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, JROTC, thank you, because normally when we're leading the pledge, I feel like I'm projecting my voice that way to make it be heard that way, and you guys were carrying us all on that pledge. That was good. You had our timing straight down. Ms. Macro, roll call.
Mr. Adams.
Here.
Dr. Anderson.
Here.
Ms. Arendt.
Here.
Mr. Caligiuri.
Here.
Ms. Chudowitz. Here. Dr. Richardson.
Here.
Mr. Sokolsky.
Here.
Mrs. Stepnick.
Here.
Mr. Strapke.
Here.
All right. The board met in executive session on January 14th, 2025 to discuss matters of litigation, safety, personnel, and real estate. Ms. Macro, can we do citizens' comments?
If there's anybody in the audience that would like to make citizens' comments at this time, we ask you to step to the podium, state your name, your residency within Plum, and you'll be provided 3 minutes that I will display on the monitors in front of you. You'll have that 3 minutes to speak to the board to share your comments, concerns. Just as a reminder, it's not a question and answer session with the board, but rather a time for you to share your ideas and thoughts. Whenever you're finished, I'll give you a 30-second warning whenever you're coming close to your end time. And then when you're finished, I just ask that you step to the end of the table here and write your name down on the clipboard so I spell it correctly in the minutes. Is there anybody that would like to speak at this time? Dr. Anderson, back to you.
Thank you. We'll move on to academic achievement and activities. And just for the board's awareness and those who are here, we're waiting for Hayes Design Group. They are trying to get here in the snow. When they get here, we're going to shift in the agenda to let them do their presentation first because they're traveling from afar, and then we'll move back to it. But we're going to move through the agenda until they get here. Okay, so academic achievement and activities. The list of letter A for grants and donations is very long, so I trust that you guys had the opportunity to read it. Are there any questions, concerns, or comments on any of those 7 items? Okay. The one that I have my own kind of questions for them. Number 1, thank you again with you here, Mr. Preston, just to say thank you, or Mr. Hartman, to say thank you for continuing to do the work for us. The $164,000 for the PCCD School and Safety and Mental Health Grant is wonderful. And then principals, because you're here, all of the work that you guys are doing and your teachers are doing, your staff in your buildings. And Ms. Griggle as well, because you're here. Thank you for the work that you're doing. The one that I wanted to ask, the PHEAA Student Teacher Program. Obviously, that's for teachers who are here and who did work in the fall.
Student teachers, yes.
Student teachers, yeah. Can you just go over what that's going to look like in the future as well?
So the Student Teacher Support Program, they receive a stipend for $10,000 for the student teaching. For those that have a degree in education like myself, I will tell you there was no greater frustration than paying full tuition and doing my student teaching experience. Because there's a shortage, the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency has this program to address the shortage of teachers. Pennsylvania 10 years ago, we used to have 20,000 certified teachers that were coming out every year. We have between 5,000 and 6,000 teachers that are certified. We are very fortunate in Plum because we want to attract and retain, that we're not experiencing shortage like other districts that do not have certified personnel in their classrooms. This program was to address the financial strain of student teaching and requirements to help incentivize completion of programs and attract to districts, especially some of the most needy districts across the state, in the effort to reduce the teacher shortage. And it also incentivizes our experienced teachers to work with our student teachers. So, Mr. Manzer, is there anything else you would like to add that maybe I missed?
This is just a great program. These payments do get passed to the district and they go directly to the student teachers through accounts payable. And like I said, it's a great program. It's low administrative overhead on this, so these payments do go directly to the student teachers.
And they're paid upon completion?
Yeah, it is completely run by FIA. We get a roster of approved, and as soon as we receive the payment, we pass it directly on.
Okay.
I want to say, I'd like to echo, I think this is a great program. When I went back to school to get my social studies education degree, I was fortunate, right? Yes, you're paying tuition, but I had additional, income right in my house. So, but I will say this, there was a lot graduating from my class that were going out of state because they were being paid essentially either their student loans or being given some sort of sign-on bonus. So I love seeing that Pennsylvania is actually working to keep our student teachers here and working.
And I love that we're taking advantage of this
Yeah,
program
we should.
to attract student teachers to our district.
Yeah, we should.
Okay, we're going to move on to or do we have 5 to move those forward? Thank you. We're going to move on to letter B, JROTC presentation. But just to say, I think Hayes Design Group is here. So we're going to have you guys, since you just made it all the way here, we're going to let you guys present after JROTC, and then you guys can be able to. No, you're good. We also want to get our students out of here too.
I just want to add, Dr. Anderson, that the JROTC, I've had the pleasure of working with Colonel Nozek and the leadership and our students. The JROTC is a place where our students come to learn leadership, citizenship, and physical fitness. I'm very pleased that they're here this evening to give us an update in regards to their status, the leadership opportunities, what they do in regards to community service, and the benefits that our students receive from this program. Colonel Nozek, I know that we've had conversations about enrollment since COVID, so this is a great opportunity to highlight the program. If you wouldn't mind coming up to the podium. And Dr. Boyers, is there anything you would like to add to this? We're good? Okay.
Working? Okay. All right, I brought the cadets with me. They're going to speak tonight too. All right, so distinguished board members, thank you for allowing us to speak tonight to you about JRC. Slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right, why I'm here today is JRC is on, your JRC program is on probation. The Air Force put us on probation for enrollment numbers. By law, the number was we needed 100 cadets. So they put us on probation. We're in year 2 of the probation. Under the law, it was 3 years, so we could possibly shut down at the end of next year or the year after that. Each year on probation, the likelihood of shutting down increases. There is a slight glimmer of hope in that the National Defense Authorization Act just changed the number, but the services are pushing back on that. So there's a glimmer of hope, but right now we need to get our numbers up if you want to keep this program. So I need your help as school board members to get out the word on what JRC is and what we are not. What we are not is a military recruitment program. You do not have to join JRC. You do not have to join the military if you are in JRC. We are an elective class just like any other class. We teach, like the superintendent said, leadership, citizenship, and physical fitness. And I'm going to focus on those first 2. As far as citizenship, community service, I don't think there's any other organization in Plum High School or the school district that does as much community service as JRC. We do about 1,000 hours of community service every year with just 60-some cadets. We do, of the 3 big ones for the high school, which is the telethon, we don't do that one, but the other 2, Toys for Tots and the Veterans Day Ceremony, we put those on. We have so many requests for community service events that we have to turn people away in the community because we don't have enough cadets or enough equipment to do what the requests are for. So anywhere from the elementary school doing dinner with Santa to working at the library to going to the retirement homes, we do that. As far as leadership, I don't think there's any other class that teaches leadership. And if they do, they don't teach it to the level that we teach it. As far as leadership goes, resumes, scholarships, and college applications. We check more blocks, in my opinion, than any other class that's taught at the high school. And even for Portrait of the Graduate, those blocks, we teach leadership and management, and those are 2 different things, and they learn the difference between those. Mentorship, followership, communication, how to be detail-oriented, problem solving, how to be analytic, project management, how to do presentations like they're doing tonight, conflict management, conflict resolution, all those things they learn in JRTC. If you go to businesses around here and they have a cadet that has JRTC on their resume, they're more likely to be hired from what we've been told because they know that the cadets are going to be responsible, respectful, they're going to show up, and they're going to show leadership. And how many other high school students can go in, like some of these cadets here, and say, I lead a cadet organization of 68 cadets. We accomplished 1,000 hours of community service, and I had an inventory of $85,000 worth of equipment. And scheduling a year's worth of activities for 12 different sports, and deconflicting the schedule, and firing captains if they need fired. They do all of that. They learn how to give feedback, and all of them had to meet a board, a 12-member board who each asked 12 questions. We had Mr. Lazaro come up, and he said the questions were thoughtful, and the answers were thoughtful, and it was just as rigorous as any interview that you used to hire teachers for the school, and they were doing that themselves, and they came up with all those questions. So we need your help to get out the word of what we do for the community and what we do for students, the opportunities we provide. We teach life skills to be successful and how to be successful in life. And so we need to get that word out to parents. And I'm going to pass you off to Cadet Sweeney first.
Can I have the next slide, please? So we really grow and build students. So my freshman year, I couldn't even imagine coming up here and speaking to all of you. I was very shy, very quiet, but JROTC really built my confidence, and it was just a wonderful program for me. Now I lead over 68 cadets, and I do that very well, and I've just learned a lot from this program that's really going to help me for my future.
When I was just a freshman, I probably couldn't even lead 5 people, and I'm being totally honest, but now I can easily lead 30 plus people. I've done it before, and I'm super confident in that. And now JRTC is helping me build my application for the Air Force Academy and all the other academies. So it is really kickstarting my career in the military and has been a massive help for everything.
My freshman year, I was barely even able to run a mile and couldn't do a single push-up. I also weighed over 200 pounds. As of right now, I can run a mile in 6 minutes and 17 seconds, and that is over a 7-8 minute improvement from my 13-minute mile I could run when I was a freshman. I also did 500 push-ups a day in December for our physical fitness team. So that really shows how much ROTC changed me physically. Mentally, my freshman year, I wasn't the maturest kid and wasn't really able to lead anyone. Now I'm slightly less mature and am second in charge of 68 people under Sweeney. And it's given me so many opportunities, and I'm really excited to see how it'll grow other people if we keep our program open.
My freshman year, I was very timid and very scared to talk in front of people. Now I'm talking in front of all of you. I wouldn't be able to do that without ROTC. It really helped me grow, get out of my comfort zone. I now can lead a team and explain how to do things to them very well, communicate with everyone very well, and none of that would have been possible without ROTC.
My freshman year, I wasn't a great student. My grades were failing and absolutely miserable. And ROTC really taught me that school's important, and everything that I'm going to do down the line is just as important as anything else I do every day. It really taught me a lot, and I've definitely made it a lot farther than I would have expected to.
When I first joined ROTC, I wasn't very confident in my ideas and my abilities, and now I am freely able to express any ideas that I have and let them be heard. I can help other cadets who felt that way or still do feel that way open up to share their ideas, because people have a lot of really good ideas that just don't get heard. I also have learned the importance of organization and everything, keeping track of logistics, and I've become a better leader, follower, and friend.
We are very involved in the community. We're only halfway through the year, but we already have 600 community service hours. We've done a lot of events so far, like Toys for Tots, where we've raised almost over 3,000 toys. Our biggest one is Veterans Day, which very gets us out in the community, the news this year. Another one is parking for the football games. We've heard from a lot of people that would not be able to be done that we have to, if we got shut down, you guys would have to find somebody to be possibly paid or another organization to do that. And we park over 300 cars each night that we have a home football game.
So JRTC is one of the only classes that actually teaches leadership. I'm a senior right now, and I've taken honors AP classes. I've been in band. I've been part of many, many organizations in the high school, but none of them teach it as well as JRTC. Colonel Nosek and also Master Sergeant Butler use their real world experiences to teach us leadership lessons that none of us would ever have gotten without them. So, and we actually have class periods where all we talk about is leadership, how to be a better leader, how to be a better follower, and how to manage people underneath you. And just that experience will make anybody stand out in the civilian world.
So we do have a lot of outside world experiences. So we learn how to write resumes, cover letters, and do interviews. This is just really crucial for when you graduate high school, because this is just really something that would help benefit all of our futures. So I just really think it'd be beneficial to anyone to join this class.
I am in charge of over $80,000 worth of equipment. I have to make sure everything is correctly inventoried. I put all the data that we get into our Wings, which is just a database used to help keep track of everything. I also need to make sure that everything is organized. If we decide to change where everything is inside, we have to make sure it's on point, and 100% accountability of everything, including all the uniforms and the equipment that we use.
I was able to schedule the entire schedule for the year with 12 LDRs and multiple out-of-school activities, and that is really challenging, but I was able to do it, and personally, I'm proud of myself for it.
In my opinion, ROTC is the best family built class we offer here in the high school. Some of my closest friends are either in grades that are below me or above me. And also, it really encourages you to talk to people who aren't just in your grade, who aren't just your friends. Sure, band, you can do that, but in ROTC, you have to work together to do maybe like a leadership exercise, trying to teach you how to communicate, or one that's trying to teach you that not everyone can talk, so you have to figure out to work with some obstacles that you might have to get around in the real world. It also gives you a sense of belonging. I've been in the band program before, and I felt, when I joined ROTC, I felt like so much more belonging than I did whenever I was in band.
I like to add on what he said, but I'm a member of 3 sports teams, and including the football team, track, and volleyball, and none of it compares to the camaraderie we have in JRDC, for sure. It is a real family, even more than most sports teams I've ever been on.
So thank you for giving us this time. I'm sorry that we went a little bit over, but I think it would really hurt the school district if we lost JRTC. I think we give so much back to the community and to the school district. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. I just want to add, Colonel Nosek, I think during our conversations, you know that you have 100% of my support. My conversation with board members, we are behind this program. I personally look forward to the Veterans Day ceremony every year. It is touching for me to see some of the neighbors that I grew up with that are, they say, a little long in the tooth, showing up and literally brought the tears in regards to what you offer, not only our buildings, our student body, but to the community. And in my conversation with Mr. Bachman and Dr. Zarmak, we are all in regards to building this program and sustaining this program. So we'll continue to work together, and tonight is just another example that every interaction I have with the JRTC, I am just truly impressed with your words, your actions, and what you mean to the school district.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
The one last thing I would add, and I don't know, and maybe you do this already, but in hearing that you're in 3 sports and you're participating in band and those other things are happening, I know as my car comes in and through, I see you guys working out or doing your physical fitness stuff a lot. I'd say two things. One, is there a way for our students to get a taste of it without the full commitment, to have a better understanding of the program? And two, are we communicating with our students well that they can do this and it doesn't hinder them or negate from them being able to do their other commitments or the other things that they want to do?
At the, when we do the open houses, we have 2 tables usually. When we go down to the middle schools, we talk about that at the middle schools. We have slides up in the cafeteria. We've been in the newsletter. So we do try to get that out, but it's really hard to get that through.
Yeah.
That you can do other sports and you don't have to do our stuff after school.
Okay.
But we have our inspection tomorrow. The Headquarters Air Force is coming down tomorrow for our inspection. So Cadet Smith, we have a breakdown that we can give you how many other activities our cadets are in.
Yeah.
So most of our cadets are in 2 or 3 other activities already.
Okay, that's wonderful.
And
Thank you guys. Good luck.
Dr.
Anderson?
May I?
I'm sorry.
Me
I'd
too.
like to just piggyback. I thought it was an excellent presentation. My youngest son is an administrator in another school district, and even as his father, I would say that he is not the person he is today or the professional if it wasn't for the Plum ROTC. The leadership qualities and that the program taught him would put him as probably one of the youngest administrators in at least the area, if not the state. The other thing is that when he went to school, he wasn't a student. Fortunately, in college, he became what he could have been. But he got 20 block college credits for his ROTC courses. So they're not AP courses, but the guidance counselor sat with us and went over his course load, and they actually gave him 20 credits all from the ROTC courses. So that's another avenue that you can look into when you go to college, but that our students need to know in Plumboro that not only does it happen in high school, but it's definitely a program that benefits them in the higher education levels. And the last thing I just want to reiterate, you mentioned it, I think it's a problem that we've had in Plum for years. You do not have to commit to the military or even have the desire to go into the military to get into the JROTC program. Corey never spent a moment in the military afterwards. Like I say, I say it all the time. The person that he is, and this board's met him before, is partially and quite a bit from the JRTC program, so I thank you.
Dr. Richardson?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I ran dinner with Santa at Pivot Elementary for a lot of years, and I always called upon the JROTC to come and help and participate, and the leadership is definitely recognized. I mean, as soon as you all got there, you took it upon yourself to say what needed to be done. You didn't have to put you back on task. It was certainly a help. So I appreciate that. And anytime I go to an event at this school without you guys there, I also notice that too, because the parking gets to be really bad. So thank you for everything that you're doing, especially in the community. I think that's really important to get our students out there and get you interacting with other people. So thank you for that. And don't forget about the seniors, if there are any.
Yeah, do we have seniors in the group?
Yes, we do. We have 3.
Could you guys, with the microphone, let us know what your plans are for next year, if you know them?
I'll start with.
Right now, I'm still undecided if I'm gonna follow through with ROTC, but I plan on going into a nursing program at Duquesne.
Awesome.
I'm currently in the application process for the Air Force Academy, the Naval Academy, West Point, and the Coast Guard Academy. I'm also looking at enlistment as well, and also I'm looking at to become a warrant officer pilot in the Army as my backup option. So, pretty fun stuff ahead.
That's tremendous.
I'm actually an early graduate, so it's been a little complicated for me, but I have managed to find 4 plans, and my main plan is to work my way to become an air traffic control specialist for the Air Force.
Okay.
I'll try my best.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations to all of you. Thanks for the reminder, Dr. Richardson. Okay, yeah. We're going to move on to item 14, projects and planning. Dr. Richardson and Mr. Adams.
If you don't mind, I'll just give an introduction. So there are 2 bullet points on the agenda this evening. The first is the middle school project recommendation for the upcoming summer. And the second is the Hayes Design scope of services and fee proposal for construction documents and construction administration for Plum Middle School. Mr. Manzer, would you like to introduce our guests and maybe elaborate a little bit further?
Sure, we have Mr. Randy Hunter and Rob Renzi's still in the audience over there, so we really appreciate HEG's work. There is many meetings, typically a weekly meeting, if not 2, that we have with this group. Ms. Shelley Schaefer's in the audience as well over there, and has been an integral part of this process in identifying the work that is necessary at the middle school. We have talked a lot about O Block Elementary, but tonight is about the middle school and the work that we'll be doing this summer and beyond. So please take it away.
All right, thanks, Ryan. All right, tough act to follow. I wish we would have driven a little bit faster. They're very impressive students there. So, so again, Randy Hunter, project architect for HDG, here to talk about the middle school scope of work here for the summer of 2025. So, if we can kind of just zoom out for a minute, everything that's in this presentation that we're looking at tonight, none of it is necessarily new information. We reviewed this. We were here in November and went over the schematic design phase deliverables for both O Block and the middle school. And so all this information is basically from that. We've just kind of rearranged it here, and then I'll talk about how and why we did that. So, since that time, since November, leading up to tonight, as Ryan said, we've met, with the administration several times, trying to kind of narrow down or determine which of those items on that list from the middle school we wanted to move forward with projects. There was about 20 or so items on that list to consider. And obviously, budget was coming into play, and also, timing and schedule of these items and how they fit into, fitting them into summer work. And what we came, one of the conclusions we came to is we probably can't do them all at once. We'd have to do some sort of phasing. And so that's kind of what we came up with is, what we're going to talk about tonight, I guess, is like a phase 1. And then the next slide we'll see is, the remaining items that didn't make phase 1, that would be considered for future work, and that would take, many more conversations and meetings to determine which of those items would be a part of a phase 2. And looking at the list, trying to determine which ones, we were going to move forward with, kind of looking at 2 main criteria, one being, again, just the timeline and the schedule for these items. So, there's the design team aspect of it, of putting documents together that can be bid, factoring in the time to put the projects out to bid, get contractor pricing, and then being ready to go as soon as the school year ends and summer break begins, and not wasting time into the summer trying to figure things out. So that was one criteria. The other was there's this environmental repair grant that the district was awarded, and so we were selecting items from that list that fit within that grant to take advantage and use that grant in 2025. And looking down through this list, again, I'm happy to answer any detailed questions about any of these items. We've gone over them a couple of times to this point, but I'll just run down through them here. So the first one, repairing the courtyard basement waterproofing over outside of the kitchen area. A2, replacing doors and windows around the exterior of the building. That would include pretty much the whole building except for the front of the building, because that, as we discussed at the last meeting, that could be a part of a separate project of upgrading the front of the middle school. M1 and M2 are both HVAC controls related items. And that's focused on the whole building except for the two-story classroom wing. That area would be taken care of as a part of one of those second phase projects, and we can talk about that in the next slide. M4 through M8, these are I guess kind of more one-for-one equipment replacement type of projects. There's not necessarily a lot of design time going into those. It's more those pieces of equipment have kind of reached the end of their life and they need to be replaced with new. And then the last item is the dust collector, which again we talked about last time. Right now it's on the roof of the middle school. It's reached the end of its useful life. It's not as accessible as it could be on the roof. It's causing issues on the roof, and so we want to get that off the roof and put a new one on the ground there. So, that's the list of I think 10 items there for proposing that for the summer of 2025. Let me bounce back up here. The M2 item. So we did sort of. There was a couple items that didn't make this list. One being replacing ceilings and then replacing lightings throughout a majority of the building. We did kind of pull just a small piece of that into that M2 item. So if you look at the diagram, the purple areas are basically where most of these items are focused in the building. And that larger of the purple areas, that's the Art Tech Ed wood shop wing. We're already going to be in those areas above the ceiling, fixing ductwork, putting new ductwork in. And so it just made sense while we're there, disrupting those ceilings to replace the ceilings and lighting in that area. Instead of, if in the summer of 2026 a phase 2 project, involves lighting and ceiling work, no reason to come back then and disrupt that area of the building again when we're going to be in there now. So that was maybe one item that kind of was added in here, just a piece of that one. So any questions on any of those items?
I guess my only quick question is, and maybe Mr. Manzer, this is a decision point you guys made as well. If I look at the scope of future work, I think it's A5M3E1, and you're mentioning lighting and ceiling work. Why can't those happen in the summer of 2025 in conjunction with some? It doesn't look like they're in the same area. Is it a cost reason that we don't want to do it right now, or is it?
The big portion of the lighting in the ceiling would be taking place in the two-story classroom wing.
Right.
And the other piece of the puzzle in the two-story classroom wing is the DOAS system, the mechanical work that also would be happening in that area. And so again, it's kind of like one of those, you're going to be working in that area doing one thing. You want to kind of do it all at once while you're there.
I would just add to this that I had an opportunity to meet with the middle school faculty today with Dr. Zarmak and to review the scope of this work and to share with them that we did take a two-phase approach. And if you listen to the presentation, it makes sense. If we're going to go into the ceiling and we're going to be working on ventilation, it doesn't make sense to take down the ceiling and then potentially have to redo it again. So it was very thoughtful. Ms. Schaefer has been invaluable in this process. Mr. Manzer, the building administrators have been a part of this process. But also the two-phase, if you look at the schedule, this is a realistic approach to what we believe we can get done this summer. Ordering materials, getting supplies, bidding it out of how we're going to go about with cooperating purchasing, and utilizing the grant funds, being fiscally responsible. Half of it, almost half, is being paid for through grants. But we also wanted to be mindful, and this is what I said to the faculty today, of not having disruptions to teaching and learning. So if you look at the schedule, it's May to August, May to September. But I also share with the faculty that there may be some short-term disruptions for long-term benefit of updating the infrastructure in that building. And I believe they are very receptive to that. And I don't know if Mr. Manzer has anything to add, but I think this is realistic in regard to what we believe we could get done if you think about it, starting this in 5 months from now, 4 months from now.
Correct. I think what we discussed was more of a nuts and bolts approach. The control work that you see there too in M1, I think is going to be really important work to get what's currently there functioning really well, and it can all be accomplished in this short lead time. I think was an issue that we discussed of mechanical equipment has longer lead times. So this is the work that could be accomplished, 1, quickly, and then 2, in the summertime. If there is any creep into the school year, those will be very limited disruptions as far as, external windows and doors, those things. I've coordinated those before while school is happening, but if we can get that work accomplished all in the summertime, that would be ideal. But those would be able to be extended if needed.
That's fair.
I'd like to talk about 2 items in the future scope, the future work. And I'm sure you all grimace when I speak, and it's fine. But I'd like to see a cost. I personally don't care that the outside looks like a box store. I care about what we're providing to our kids, what they have to learn with their tools, that their facilities are usable and are the best quality. Could it use a facelift? Sure. Is it a priority? Absolutely not. And so I would like to know the cost of this facelift for A9 versus fixing the field and turfing it, so it's a usable field. So this field stops getting beat up day in and day out because everybody has to play here. And I know that's next summer, and I get that. I get that that's going to be a little bit more of a dynamic. But I'm personally growing nervous of the 4 possible future conversations, and we borrowed $10 million, but we're going to borrow another $10 million again in another few months. But we keep on just moving the line, and we're not providing to the community, here's the overall project and here's the overall timeline. And I have a real problem with this, because in a few months from now, we're going to borrow again. And we're still not producing an actual project for the community to see, and it's tangible. Again, I'd like to know the cost difference between what it is for the beautification of A9 versus what it is for A8 to have a legitimate usage for our students and our community functions that go on here. So I would like to see that. Again, I'm one of 9, but I'm getting really frustrated with we'll keep talking about that later. Well, that's a potential for later, but we're still going to keep borrowing. And then the next project is still $9 million overall. All of these are over budget, and no one's addressing the $9 million over budget. So I think we need to start producing an actual project for the community to see that's tangible.
I would add, a couple of things I would add. The facelift of the building, what we've been saying in our meetings and my conversations with the building administrators and with their teams is that instructional space will take a priority over aesthetics. That being said, if we are going to look at the front of that building and redesign it to add a security vestibule, and we're already going to be touching that space, then we should make it something that we're all proud of going to that building. Because when you look at some of that facade at the building, and I know it's dated, it's wearing, and if we're going to touch that space, we might as well update it to, I would say, a standard. The reason that we are here proposing $4.2 million in upgrades to the middle school is because our initial recommendation was to upgrade O Block Elementary. And what we heard from the board is that, and I believe rightfully so, Ms. Stepnick, you were very outspoken about this along with other board members, that the middle school seems to be something that has got pushed back year after year after year. And I actually said that to the faculty, that it's something that we want to look at the infrastructure. Based on that board feedback, we're coming back with a recommendation to start work as an initial step at the middle school based on the feedback from this board. but we're also looking at offsetting some of those costs, i.e. some of the facade at O Block Elementary. You know, do we really need those overhangs? Do we need some of those aesthetically pleasing items where we could offset the costs at O Block and put more into the middle school? It is not unusual for school districts to work in phases in regards to where we're moving. And maybe Randy, you can talk about this or Rob, but in our conversation is that this is a fiscally responsible approach and it's a stepped approach in regards to giving this board the utmost flexibility to make decisions. You know, our financial position has changed dramatically with the bond upratings, and it has put us in a better position. You know, where we're going to be as we're going through this, conditions may change. You know, the economy may change and this board has flexibility to make changes, to be fiscally responsible. But I hear you loud and clear in regards to let's get this mapped out, let's get the costs out, let's be transparent, and let's build it out. In regards to that transparency, we've already started conversations in regards to developing our website that would have a construction piece to it. Focused on the middle school and O Block, and being transparent with all of our stakeholders in regards to where we're going, the cost, all the documents that are presented here with the board would be one-stop shopping for community members.
I appreciate that, because that's not new information. We had this is not my first construction project, so that's why I'm airing my frustrations, because at least in past years, and I think based on the large file I gave you last Christmas.
You always give me large documents.
I can just give it over to you. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this stuff. I'm kidding. And all the different designs and all of our buildings and all the different Davis demographic studies and all the different architects that have come in here and given us presentations and have spent countless weeks and months in this school district doing a lot of research and a lot of working with our staff. We absolutely had that stuff on our website in past years. So and that is a good thing. But again, we still need to show what the tangible product is going to be at the end of the day. What are we spending people's money on?
Absolutely.
And yes, these are things they're not going to see. I mean, they'll see some of it, but it's needed in that building.
Absolutely.
But I go back to, I personally, again, one of 9, could care less as long as it's structurally sound what it looks like if we're giving more to our kids for usage.
I agree.
And I like to see that, because we're saying it's $4 million worth of upgrades. Some of it is grants. So are we trying to offset all of that so maybe we don't have to cut the budget $9 million for the overestimation? That doesn't work for me. I'd rather spend $9 million less tax dollars if we continue raising outside funds than go to that next $10 million borrowing cycle in the third year. So again, I'm frustrated because we've been at this conversation for a really long time. For some that are new to the board, not so long for you, but it's been a really long time. And the middle school can has been kicked for over a decade. So I'm grateful that it's happening, but we need to show the taxpayers what they are paying for. And I've sadly seen flexibility be used in this community as a political tool, and I'm very highly concerned about that.
Well, there's 2 points I'd make. One is, you know, should we delay the project at the middle school in order to have a thorough, detailed plan, which will take time? We're proposing we can build the plane and fly it in regard to some of this work.
No, this is needed. This list for this year is 100% needed. I'm sick of sending my kid to school in shorts and a t-shirt. I mean, he doesn't benefit from it, but that's the bottom line of what's happening there.
So we're in agreement with that,
Right, and what I appreciate in you guys clarifying that is, if we tried to bite off too much, or to your point, not be as fiscally responsible, research and plan this exactly how we want to, we could have a summer 2025 that puts teachers out, students delayed, all those kind of things. So I appreciate that we're taking a scope that we feel like we can manage and do well at, which also gives us design time to be able to say, okay, not so much on the front end, but what can we do for teaching and learning? How can we do this right? And to your point, can we turf it instead of putting the money in the facade? Did we get outside resources so we can shift money around a little bit here? But I like that. And I guess I don't like the words "and beyond," But again, maybe a turf field can't be till 2027.
No,
Maybe
100%.
that's the end
That's a
beyond.
timing
You know
and
what I
that's a
mean?
planning
Yeah.
process. But again, give the community a time frame, and we say as a board, this is our time frame, and this is how your money is being spent in this time frame.
Yep.
And stick with it. It doesn't matter who's here in a year from now. It doesn't matter how this works. This can has been kicked, projects have been canceled, and now it's costing us a lot more money.
Yep.
And so we have to learn from those past mistakes and continue going forward. The whole flexibility word, I've seen it, and it scares me to death.
Yeah, I think the good news is, and like I said earlier, I think we're in agreement in regards to, being transparent and getting the information out, is that we're coming back in January talking about we want to start these projects in 4 months. We have a neighboring school that was remote learning in one of their buildings because my understanding is that the boiler was from 1960. I would submit to this board that we're in a similar position. And some of the good work that Ms. Schaefer and Mr. Manzer has been working on is building out a facilities plan so that we're not in a position in the middle of December or January that we're replacing something that is end of life. This board has experienced that at O Block with the roof. I approached the board in regards to an emergency repair that had 7 leaks, and we were putting a Band-Aid on it, and we needed to act immediately to ensure that the building was warm, safe, and dry for our students, and this board acted accordingly.
Oh, it's
We had the hot water issue at the middle school. We had the pump that was 42 years old heating our pool. We're moving towards a better plan. Mr. Manzer, with his financial plan and the way that he is stacking bonds, is positioning this district to be able to make big decisions down the road. But we are still living with some of the decisions that were made in the past, and it's costing us more money to go back and fix them now.
Correct.
But I believe we're positioned better, and I can't think of a time in my over 30 years experience where you had an administrative team that has brought in over $8 million worth of grants, or any district that has come remotely close to that number in alternative revenue to try and offset the cost for what we're doing. And just as a final reminder, when you look at neighboring districts and their operating budgets, they are $30 to $50 million more than we have. Penn Hills, Woodland Hills, Franklin Regional, what's the other one? Gateway. We are fiscally responsible, and you've heard me say you get your bang for your buck in the Plum Borough School District because we're doing it with an operating budget of $74 million, and these other districts are working with $96 to $120 million annual budgets, and we have more students, and I believe we offer more than what they offer. So we are doing the best that we can, and working with Mr. Manzer, putting together a long-range plan, we are moving in the right direction, and we believe that this stepped approach right now is the best way to get some of these items fixed, but also keeping our eye on the ball in regards to the Davis demographic study of what the enrollment is going to look like at O Block. I think the last month, Mrs. Fight, I said you added 19 students since the beginning of the year. Any more since the break? 2 more? So they're coming, right? And the step back, I hear you loud and clear, and it's based on the feedback that I've heard from you and other board members that why we're coming back with these recommendations. So I don't want you to think that it's not being heard.
No,
it is.
I understand that. And
Yeah.
you brought up the Davis demographic study, so now I'm going to bring up my next question.
Okay.
And I know it's another topic nobody wants to talk about, so we'll just add more money to O Block, and I'm not saying that's maybe the right answer, I don't know that.
Yeah.
But we need to explore, does it save a couple $1 million by redistricting? Does it save $5? I'm asking those questions, but nobody wants to talk about that the enrollment's shrinking at Pivic because we redistricted how many times in a row? Those kids are done. They're like, quite frankly, the last redistricting was my child, and he's going to high school. He'll be in this building next year. So again, we should at least look at what that looks like. We owe that to the taxpayers to do our due diligence and look at those numbers and look at what they look like, and then we can say, hey, you know what, we looked at it. We ran the numbers. This is what it's gonna cost. We don't think it's worth that to uproot children. Or, hey, it's gonna save a lot and we're gonna do it. But again, nobody wants to explore the topic because it's controversial to some level. But we owe it to the taxpayers, and that's part of being fiscally responsible, is to at least look at that number and say, okay, it's going to save a lot, or it's not going to save a lot. Or, okay, there's a use of space here at Pivot now that we can do X, Y, and Z with. But again, that's like this untouched topic that nobody wants to discuss, and I think it's worth a conversation.
So
at least a conversation, and for that to look at what it is. Again, and I appreciate that we're working on the middle school first because, in all honesty, historically, the middle school was the building that was coming next.
Yeah.
And it's been moved and moved and moved. But we still need to, at some point in the very near future, before we decide we're going to get on the next bandwagon to borrow $10 million more, we got to tell the community what they're paying for and let them see it and have a conversation.
We have looked preliminary, they haven't taken a deep dive, but at the redistricting, the population is growing too fast at O Block and not decreasing fast enough at Pivot to make a substantial difference. One of the other options I heard from this board is maybe going back to K6 buildings. That would require us to do 2 bus runs and hire many more drivers, more buses, and it's hard to get drivers. So we did take a preliminary view of that. During the Make-A-Wish, we talk about students asking thoughtful questions. One of the questions I was asked was, what's your long-term vision for the district? And there's probably 20 different things I could have said, but the one was, I talked about being a student here and going to Harding Elementary, for K-5, and then 6th grade was center at the time, and then Pivot was a junior high. And when I came here 7 years ago, and you and I have talked about this, and I've talked about it with other board members, that what I heard is Old Holiday Park, New Holiday Park, Regency, and parents and community expressed such a frustration with all the changes that were occurring. What we are recommending with the addition at O Block would give capacity K through 12 and bring stability to this community, I believe, for the next 15 to 20 years. And I think there's a value in a comfort in regards to knowing that we have 2 K4 buildings, an intermediate, a middle school, and a high school. It doesn't mean that, that configuration could change down the road, but I believe with what we have moved forward with the recommendation will bring long-term stability in a fiscally responsible way without adding more drivers, more buses, or just moving some students from O Block to Pivot only to have to move them back at a later date. So I do believe this brings long-term stability, and that's why, this was one of the recommendations of moving the addition forward. So.
Do any other board members have any questions?
One question. Can you provide, I don't know if it's you or Mr. Manzer, the boiler, how does it fit into what's happening now with it versus what's on here?
So 2 different systems, the domestic hot water, is that what you're referencing later in the agenda?
Yes.
So the domestic hot water heats the service for hot water to the hand washing stations, the cafeteria. That is completely different than the hot water heating system that's referenced on these lists. So there is no connection to the items that you see on this list and the item later on the agenda.
Both need to be replaced.
I just have a quick question.
With M9, have we looked into doing any kind of portable cost saving, like a portable dust extractor versus?
Yeah, that we kind of explored all the options for the dust collectors, looking at the portable options, and there's a lot of complications that come with those. You need multiple of them. They're pretty big and bulky. They take up a lot of space. And there's already a dust collector, the infrastructure is partly already there. So just putting a new dust collector and tying into that, we felt was the better route for that.
Thank you.
If I could give Randy an opportunity to go to the last slide and just talk a little bit about the delivery methods of the project in regards to how we're approaching this, how the board may see this, these individual projects be presented to them for action in the future.
Yeah, so if you look down through the second column there, the delivery method, you'll see most of these are under co-op purchasing or state contract, and that'll give that gives the district a lot more control over who you're selecting to do this work, to do these installations, and to do this work on site. You'll still get competitive bidding, competitive pricing from contractors, but you'll have more control over the selection of who you're going with, and even who's actually bidding on the work. So that's the case for almost all of these. Really, the first one, the repairs over the basement, that's the one that's more general construction. There'll be several different trades involved in getting that work done. So that'll be more of just your typical. We'll put together a bid package. It will be publicly bid, and that'll be the direction for A1. Looking at the schedule again. About 2 months or so for the design phase, for us and our engineering consultants to kind of put documents together, to be ready to bid, to be ready to get pricing from contractors on this. That gives us, April timeframe to do that process. Getting all of those bids in, vetting them, and then, using May to, get everything finalized and ready to go as soon as school is out. Looking down through, if we just want to kind of look at the summary there, all of the hard costs, come to a total construction cost of 3.4. We added in the escalation and the soft costs. So for escalation, the hard cost numbers here are from, generally from our schematic design estimate. So that was, back in October, November, and by the time we get, actual contractor pricing for this projects will be, April. So we're looking at like, 6 months difference. We also just crossed into, a new year, which is always a time that, suppliers, it's a good chance for them to say, oh, let's, jack our prices up a little bit. So we just put that in, just to be conservative. And then, your soft costs, that's, your construction contingencies, professional services, permitting, all of that. So that gets you down to the full total of about 4.3, but as we talked about, we have that environmental repair grant that was awarded. That was a little over 1.9. So you have a total of 2.3, 2.4 total project cost to the district.
The environmental repair grant too is a 50-50 match, so that is the 1.9 million is the state's 50%. We will match the other 50% through the list you're seeing here. And then any additional costs that are not paid by that grant, including our 50%, we'll utilize those bond money. We're going to, as you process this, we're certainly going to use the grant funds first, and then we'll use our bond money second. But most of these projects are qualified under that grant.
Yeah, and the other thing, obviously we selected these items because we feel like the vast majority of them can be completed during the summer months. The one, probably the HVAC controls is, M1 and M2 are the two that maybe have a chance of trickling into the fall. But again, we will, as Ryan said earlier, we'll work with, our design team, we'll work with Shelley to make sure that our design documents, are set up in a way that contractors know, any spaces that are, student occupied, classrooms, prioritize that work first in the summer. That way, any work that does need to trickle into the fall semester is happening in mechanical spaces or on the roof or just otherwise outside of student spaces to the extent possible. So,
in this delivery of a project, we're doing these really one by one using that cooperative purchasing where we can select the vendors, as you've already mentioned. But this will look much different than what you'll see for O Block. O Block is a large construction project where we do design bid documents. This one is a smaller approach, looking at these as individual projects. So it will look different when we move our attention to O Block.
Any other questions or concerns?
I think the one is that if there's 5 to move this forward, we'd like to start the work instead of 2 weeks go by, because we're on such a tight timeline. So it's just a consideration as you're looking to move this forward.
I have one last question. What's the timeline to see phase 2? So we know what that's going to cost and look like and what we settle on.
Yeah, I think, those are all conversations to be had, whenever the administration wants to start looking at that list.
I can answer a little bit of that. I had a conversation with a neighboring district, 2 of them that just went through construction and the bidding process. One of them, the bids came in well under what they were expecting, and they were able to do more. So part of the equation is going to be when we're looking at O Block, and how much can we maintain the instructional space, add capacity to that building, but also balance the work at the middle school. So we are still working on those numbers, but we meet weekly, and we will get that to you as soon as we're ready to move forward with the recommendation. But
Well, I'm not talking about O Block, I'm talking about the middle school.
But it has a ripple over to the.
Sure,
Yeah.
but as Mr. Manzer just said, these are individual projects. So
Yes.
phase 2 is summer 2026. I'm saying that for,
Yeah.
we don't know exactly how long that needs to all go out.
Yeah.
What's the timeline of us seeing what that's going to look like and cost for the middle school?
We're
Because I'm
working
looking
on-
at them as, again, we just said they're all separate, so
Yeah.
what is the timeline for what the phase 2 or the future, what's that timeline, and when will we see a design for that and the cost for that and the cost breakdowns?
Just I think I'll jump in there is that obviously in a school system, you're taking advantage of the summertime. So as you stated, summer of 2026 is the next block of time that you'd have to dedicate to doing some of these major projects that are proposed in this future work. What you'll find is that the next point that this board will receive are more details about the scope of work at O Block. After that is completed, and that work is scheduled to start September, but after that scope of work has been identified, then we'll turn our attention back to this timeline, and certainly the summer of 2026 is going to be a targeted time frame for that, and leading up to it, you'll have a similar decision point through next year at this time of year.
That doesn't work for me, I'm sorry, but I want to see what the rest, finishing the middle school is going to look like.
Yeah.
And I could show you years of historical documents that show the middle school was the next building. We borrowed $10 million. The conversation was, this money will go to fixing the middle school first. What are we doing? I want to know how much it's going to cost to get to where the future phase looks like for the middle school. I'm asking that question. I get that the O Block is also on the conversation table, but I'm asking, when are we going to see what the middle school is going to look like, and what is that going to cost? And I think it's a very fair question, because that was part of the whole incentive of, we'll borrow now so we can get started with the middle school. Great. I want to know where are we with the middle school to finish that, because I'm sorry, but I have voted for years that the middle school was next. And now you're saying, well, we'll get to that after we do the O Block design. I want to see what that's going to look like. I personally would like to know. And then we know what our numbers are to play with, and how we balance O Block and the middle school. There's only $30 million to play with. So I think we need to see it all. And I'm asking, what's the timeline for the future phase here for the middle school? Because that's the topic of conversation this evening.
And we're going through that process in order to gather that information. You're asking us to have a crystal ball of what the total cost of O Block is going to be at this moment in time.
I'm asking the middle school. to finish phase 2 of the middle school that's sitting in this presentation that's in front of us tonight?
The $30 million is being used. Initially, the recommendation was just for O Block. We're using that for both buildings. You know, the board can make a decision if you want to borrow another $10 million and put an artificial turf field in, and, you know, we can pause and have, you know, more of a design. I mean, that's an option. We're trying to work within the $30 million of being responsible for that, and it's a balance between O Block and the middle school. You know, we've been pushing back and forth in regards to what can we do to make, to meet the needs of O Block Elementary and all of their students, and also allotting funds to address the middle school. That is an evolving process, and I'm sorry we do not have an answer this evening, but we are continuing to gather information, working with the architects, gathering information, and we've been providing what we have with the board as we're moving forward. And the result of that has been, you know, recommending work to be done this summer at the middle school. And I understand it's frustrating, but that's where we're at if we're working within that $30 million.
I don't believe the phase 2 will ever happen at the middle school. I'm going on record saying that.
It will.
Here's what I would
Yeah.
say. I want to be.
No, it won't.
well,
Not in my lifetime.
I hope you don't die that soon, because I think it's going to, right? I think,
actually don't.
Okay, but I think we will. What I would ask is, I think there's a couple action items that I think you've brought up some good points. I would say, I know we've said preliminary for Davis demographics, but if we can just kind of bring that to some reportable way to share with the board, just even internally for us to see what that looks like, what you're saying you guys took a look at. Is there a way to revisit or reshare with us? Because I do think we already saw that, but maybe just to bring that top of mind.
I'll add it this week.
Yeah, and then 2, I know you guys are meeting weekly, right, with HDG. Can you just give us, again, and I know a ballpark isn't sufficient for you, but a ballpark that you guys are mindful of, hey, this is what our O-Block timeline is looking like. When we hit this point in our O-Block timeline, we'll be at a good spot to be able to give some time and energy to the 2026, summer of 2026. Can we, and I'm not saying you have to give the energy to it yet, but can we just understand that timeline and be able to share that? And then I would say top of mind, and I agree, because you hear some murmurings from folks in the community. Can we work with Mr. Laletta to just get something built out that's on the website that is able, what we feel good about is able to be shared, because I think it's better for us to be sharing that information than for news releases to be sharing that information. So, yeah, right. So I just think those are great points. I think if we can kind of bring that top of mind, and I don't like to drive in the snow, so I think we should move on. So you guys don't have to drive in the snow, so we can, and you don't have to drive in the snow any later than we need to. So I see 2 items there. Are we doing 2 separate things? There's one document we haven't looked at yet, or do we not need to review that?
The presentation in itself does not need to move forward, just the next item would, and we can move that forward when we get to the item on the agenda if you want to do it separately. It's fine.
Yeah.
Or now is fine, either way.
Do we have 5 to move? Does he need to, I keep getting names confused. Does Randy need to address that item, or are we just moving forward?
Address item B?
Sure. Item B is a contract for the services thank you, Randy, as well, for your presentation. Greatly appreciated. And thank you, Rob, for attending.
It's the domestic.
Item B is the proposal for Hayes Design Services themselves.
I thought we did that.
The scope of work aligns to the spreadsheet that you have just reviewed on the last page of that.
Yep.
Their design fees include their services plus any engineers or other professionals underneath their supervision. And this is a very fair fee because of the way that we're delivering this work individually. And then also to note, they have continued to provide us sort of refunds or discounts from their 2022 study that they have performed to us. And we negotiated if we move forward with any of these projects that they would refund or put a credit for those fees, and so we recoup those funds as well.
Okay, do we have 5 to move that forward? I see 1. Mike, are you good too? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay.
Except for the $1.25 per page color printer, but other than that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, wonderful. Randy, thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe driving home. Okay, so that takes care of projects and planning. So we'll move back up to letter C under academic achievement and activities, which is the 25-26 time.
So what you have in front of you, Dr. Anderson, is the 25-26 school calendar. It's very similar to this year, and this year was built out on feedback from stakeholders and looking at data. Dr. Boyer, would you like to elaborate a little bit more on this?
So to keep it just kind of brief, with Dr. Walsh already hit on the key points. So internal and external stakeholders. Last year we added the Meet the Teacher event. That went over extremely well within internally and externally. So we heard a lot of great feedback with that. So we're going to continue that initiative. And then the other piece that the community at large is appreciative of was the graduation date being published. And so again, it's there. With that in mind, we're also being mindful of any type of construction that would take place within the summer months. And so it has a similar approach to it. So construction could begin immediately in the month of June. So.
You left out Kennywood Day. I'm excited to see it on the 11th.
Is it on there?
Yeah, it's on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, that was my first thing I looked for, and the start date.
And I think the community has appreciated, hopefully going into this year, knowing when graduation is. I like how we're doing it. If it's changed, we'll let them know by April 1st. I think it's the right thing to do for people to plan. So, Dr.
Yeah, do we have 5 to move it
Just
forward?
a comment, whenever we communicate to our families, I just want to really make sure that September 26th flexible instructional day, like we really call that out. Like this is going to be happening, your student will be at home, because I heard some feedback this year that
they didn't get it.
Even though it's on the calendar,
Yeah.
we talk about it, like let's really call that out so it doesn't
I agree.
surprise them.
We will over communicate. So, okay. We can include that in our digital backpack. The principals can include it in their letters to the families, and we will get the message out loud and clear.
It's also important to reiterate, this is an asynchronous day. Like, I'll be frank with you, this last one, my kid sat at meet for 9, he's like, that's it. I got up for this, no one even got on. And I'm like, just do your work and be quiet. But like, but with that said, I think parents freaked out, like, my kid's got to be there ready, and I have to teach them all day. This is stuff that and they're minimal assignments. It's just how to log on, how to participate and find your work. So I think it's showing the level of commitment for the day.
Yeah.
It's not that disruptive.
It allows us to test our systems. And in my conversation with Mr. Loletta, Ms. Smith, Dr. Boyers, leading up till this year, we had several of our students, because we haven't had delays or cancellations, that haven't had this opportunity. But it allows us to make sure that our microphones, that our cameras, that kids have access to the internet, and really prepare them for like the weather we're experiencing this evening.
That's not supposed to be here.
Right. Do we have 5 to move it forward? Okay.
Next is Dr. Anderson, is the program studies. I will share with you, it's very interesting, the timing in regards to our program study for the middle school and for the high school. Because as this board is aware, we are in the process of working on our comprehensive plan. Dr. Boyers and Mr. Thomas, or Dr. Thomas, is going to be working on building out, working with the steering committee and various groups of where we're going and where our vision is. That is going to have, I would say, significant changes in regards to where we're going in regards to offering for students. We're also in the process within the next few months of completing our portrait of a graduate, what we want our kids to know and be able to do, and the skills that we believe they need to have going into a gig economy into the 21st century. That is also going to have ripples. I would also add that we continue to have conversations internally and perform site visits externally in regards to other school districts and other programs and other supports that are available for our students. So as we're moving the program of studies forward, because as you're aware, this gives our students an opportunity to start scheduling in February. This informs our decision for staffing in March, which drives our budget in April and May. So even though you're seeing changes, what I'm saying to you publicly is that we are looking at significant changes moving forward. So this is still a work in progress. We want to make sure we have a systematic approach in how we roll this out. So Dr. Boyers, is there anything you'd like to add? And we can start to talk a little bit more about this.
No, Dr. Walsh, I would happily turn it over to Dr. Zarmak to begin the conversation.
Okay. You're up, Dr. Zarmak.
Good evening. Like Dr. Walsh said, there's a lot of moving parts happening throughout the district. So with that being said, there weren't, the biggest updates are through the PDLA courses with Mr. Hartman, which are very much appreciated to offer to our students, especially through electives. The few students that we have, that's a huge benefit to have for them. And the other updates for the scheduling timeline, we're going to try to hit that a little bit different this year to make sure that our students are better informed coming in to the middle school, but also work with the high school to make sure that they're also getting that information in 8th grade going into 9th grade prior, so they're more aware of what to expect with the scheduling process and different opportunities and extracurricular opportunities for them as well through the scheduling timeline. Overall, that's pretty much all that we're recommending here at the middle school this year.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns about the middle school program of studies?
I think it's great that they get an option of some PDLA to understand it and a little bit of an introduction and more of a controlled setting. So I like it.
Thank you.
Here's my question to you.
Yes.
In the next 2 weeks, can you take a look at it? And I know I've already sent you an email about this. And can you make sure, in light of the portrait of a graduate, in light of what we're going to talk about with the balanced scorecard, that any strategies that you guys have in your building for what you'd like to do for next year, this document doesn't hinder that?
I'll be happy to. I have thought of a couple different things. Some things that were included in that, but other things that spurred opportunities with thinking through that a little bit today. So I do have some other opportunities I think that'll benefit us, but also that could trickle up to the high school too. There's some other opportunities that I've learned about through the AI fellowship this past week that I attended to that maybe we could start to bridge those gaps together as well.
Yeah, that would be great. And for the board's awareness, from my perspective, I feel like we're on the cusp with the portrait of a graduate and being able to do our comprehensive planning to really be able to put some great things in place. But I also know we have to do this. We have to move them forward for staffing, and those timelines aren't lining up. And
Right.
so I had sent an email to Dr. Zarmak and to Mr. Bachman saying, can you please look at this, because I don't want, and these are high school things, but job shadowing, internships, community service, scheduling, all of these different aspects to have something put in here that we pass, and then it feels like it's set in stone, and so we can't actually implement some things in 25, 26, and we have to say, oh no, those have to wait till 26, 27. I want us to be able to be as agile and nimble as we can, but also as a district be able to do staffing. And I'll wait till the balanced scorecard to ask some other
Yeah,
questions
and I
about
do
it, but-
think at the middle school we can do a better job of some of those things, and some things we already started to incorporate.
Yeah.
But I do think that we could do a better job of our 8th graders leaving to come up to the high school to have a better understanding of what to expect and what's offered, and also communicate that to the parents earlier on, which I'll take responsibility for at the middle school.
Yeah, I mean, because this document is really just a tool. It's a tool for families to be able to use and for you to be able to communicate with families what's happening, what that program of studies looks like, but it's all the other implementation pieces that really allow this to come to life.
Right.
I just don't want things in it to tie your hands because we passed it as a board and you don't have that.
No,
Yeah.
thank you, I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
But to your point, Dr. Anderson, I mean, we meet every month.
Yeah.
So, I mean, other than a
pass it,
course
yeah.
selection and that's sort of how that works, like, if there's something as we continue with a vision of Portrait of a Graduate, as we move forward, as long as we're not saying, well, that's no longer available to you and you signed up for that, like, we could change a document and say, hey, here, we're, what your child, their path your child is on is not changing.
Yep.
But we have a little more flexibility in this, or this looks a little different, but you're still going to be able to do whatever. And I think we meet every month. There's got to be a way to, documents are workable, right?
Yep.
We can adjust.
When the board approves the Future Ready Comprehensive Plan, when you approve the portrait, those are going to become living, breathing documents. And the one thing you'll hear me talk about in regards to our program of studies with the balanced scorecard and in regards to generally how we operate, we need to be aligned. And the better we are aligned, I think it's better for our students. So to Dr. Anderson and Ms. Stepnick's point, I agree with you that as direction shifts, we cannot be so rigid that we don't shift with the movement. So, and I think Dr. Zarmak and Mr. Balkman would both agree with that.
Yes.
Yeah, I just don't want us to hand it to a family
No,
and then make a ton of changes.
Yep, I'm very happy
you know?
to visit that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have 5 to move the middle school program of studies forward? Wonderful. Next up is the high school.
Mr. Balkman?
I have a high school question.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to review some of the changes that the high school faculty and staff have suggested for the upcoming school year. We recognize that you guys have presented with this information, so I will briefly kind of just highlight some of the major changes for this upcoming school year. First off, looking to implement some new courses at the high school. We'd be looking at reintroducing the English 12 class, which has been taught in previous years. I believe it has not been in our curriculum program study for about 4 years at this point. Also looking at having a second level of the construction technology and manufacturing course, which is taught downstairs in our tech ed department. It has been a course that's been very popular with our students. And we certainly are seeing a need to have a second level for our students to continue to work in that space. Finally, really excited to offer a fire service training academy program. For you that are not necessarily aware of what that is, fire training would be an 8-module training where students would be then eligible at the end of all of this to receive their Fire 1 certification licenses. In speaking with some of our local fire departments, they are very much struggling with recruiting and retaining some of our younger students. We have a small group of students now that are running with and supporting those local departments, but we also see a need to try to encourage some more of our students to take this program and then be a part of those local departments as they're really in need of individuals. So what we have available to us, and other districts have used this as well, is students would meet 14 times throughout the school year to receive that module training. And then at the end of those 14 sessions, 8 modules, they would be prepared and able to take that Fire Certification 1 licensing.
That's awesome. I love it.
Also, looking at retiring some courses. The reasoning for the retiring of the courses this year is a combination of lack of enrollment from students with interest in taking those courses. Those courses are the global business, the honors mobile app microbiology, biochem and bioinformatics, and then making some changes in our English department based upon the suggestions of the department head and the individuals in that classroom. We would be looking at phasing out the contemporary literature, classic lit, film and lit, tech writing, and short story. And then many of the components of those courses that we currently have would just be aligned in the curricular courses that we have currently. So students would still have an opportunity to learn about some of these things, but they will be incorporated into our other English classes as well.
Mr. Bachman, how will that work for, I'm just thinking of both of my kids as they went through taking semester-based English courses in their, especially I think it was their senior year, that was really tough. And I see that English 12 course is there, but being able to take some specific ones were helpful to meet the English requirement.
Right, so we will still have quite a few of our English electives for the next school year. So we'll have the drama, the debate, the college writing skills, creative writing, yearbook newspaper course, and then the TV productions 1, 2, and 3, and the speech course would still be offered.
Yeah, okay.
Dr. Anderson, also, I have prepared a couple things with the information that you had asked about. I don't know if that's something you would like me to look at and talk about this evening, or if that's something that you'd rather do at a later time.
Yeah, no, I think it's great for the board to hear. I mean, you're saying in response to the email I sent you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, guys, again, I think our focus for our high school age students, grade 9 through 12, really needs to begin focusing on what the needs of our students are. What are the pathways and the career choices that they want to potentially make after they leave Plum Senior High School? Not an easy conversation to have with a 15-year-old kid, but it's certainly something that we need to be doing more consistently and with a better sense of urgency. As our students begin to go from grade to grade for us, and we are sitting in meetings with our students, whether it be an IEP or a GIEP, or just having conversations with our students as to, hey, what's potentially your next step? The three of us in the administrative office and in the school counseling office will talk about the biggest fear that we have is when we have that conversation with our students, they look at us with a blank stare and a shrug of the shoulder. We much rather have a student name 55 things that they are interested in doing whenever it is that they have left here. So one of the things that we really need to improve on for this coming year as it relates to our scheduling is we've got to have a clear focus on both college and career planning. What we're doing now has certainly got to evolve to where we are engaging both our students and their families in those conversations. At this point in time, we're really going to focus on that personalized approach to what students are interested in and what it is they might want to do in their future. We also talk with our students. It is great for you to find out the things that you're passionate about in this building, but it's also okay for you to find out about things that you have no interest in. So we need to do a better job and evolve how we are helping students schedule in those situations. At this point in time, we have students that are doing college fairs, virtual tours, online career exploration, interest inventories, all those things. We need to get those situated in a place where kids are looking at those things each and every year and really getting some value out of doing those activities. Like, we need to look at the diversity of our students. We have our local colleges coming in very frequently to speak to our guys. We need to look at focusing on HBCUs. We have a diverse student population here. There is a lot of scholarship money out there. We've had a few students in the last year or 2 years that have gone to some of these schools. We need to give our students the opportunity to see those places as well. We need to have local unions coming in, trades coming in. There's a lot of opportunities for students outside of the typical four-year college career path. And when there was once a time where that was really the sole focus of the conversation that we were having with students 10, 15 years ago, that's not the reality of our students' world today. So that's one of the things that we really need to focus on. You had a question about how are we communicating honors, AP courses, in college and the high school. We are finding that it has become more and more of a difficult conversation to have with our families as to what is a better route for their students to take if they're looking at those courses. And really, that is because depending upon the institution that our students choose to go to, if they do go to a four-year school route, some schools will accept an AP score of 3 or higher. Some schools won't accept any AP score. So I think that we have currently a very good blend of both AP and college and the high school courses in our building. And in speaking to some of our students that had graduated in the past and some of their families as well, it was more beneficial for them, for their student to take that college and the high school course and have an actual college transcript to be able to show to whatever institution that they're going to. So one of the things that we certainly need to look into is what gives our students and their families the greatest value if they're going any of those 3 routes. And so that's clearly something that we will be doing. You had talked about job shadowing, internships, community service. For those of you that aren't aware, at the end of this month, we will have our career day. We will have over 160 individuals coming in from both the community and the surrounding area to talk to our students about jobs and potential employment. Something that we will do as we greet and thank those individuals for coming in on that day to speak to our students is we will have something prepared that they are aware of our interest in starting internship programs or job shadowing programs or even just a mentorship program for the day. There are so many individuals that have a wide range of skill sets that we just need to get a better idea of what our local community has to offer our students. So we're really going to use that day with as many folks that we have in the building to begin having those conversations about those opportunities for our students. Another thing that we'd like to bring up is our student athletes. There have been questions about athletic and extracurricular participations, NCAA eligibilities, and the recruiting process. And speaking with Mr. Carpin, this will be a focus that we have on offering these types of workshops to both our students but also their families. And then finally, we are having a conversation, we've started already with our department heads about what are the expectations of our midterms and our finals. 15 years ago, I think there was a push to have our students experience what we called high stakes testing. And a lot of school districts went to instituting midterms and final examinations. Guys, there isn't one of you in here that needs me to say our students begin high-stakes testing in 3rd grade. So the conversation that we need to have with our high school staff is what values are we getting out of our midterms and our final exams? How much time are we utilizing to review for these things? How much time could we potentially be losing with classroom instruction because of some of the structures that we have for both midterms and our final exams? So again, we've talked to our department heads about that. We're looking to see what the benefits are. We're looking to see what the drawbacks are, get a better understanding of what our staff thinks about having those things. And tomorrow at our faculty meeting, we'll begin that conversation with the entire group of the faculty.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. And I would say, and I know there's other middle school and high school parents who are in here, I would just encourage you to figure out how you can beat us over the head with it and beat our students over the head with it, so no one has an excuse for not understanding those things or those opportunities that are being offered at the middle school or at the high school well. And I'd say that for our elementary buildings as well, but I do think there's something to be said, and maybe it's my own work and customer experience, but like, let's look at that journey for our families. When that 9th grader meets and schedules with their school counselor, what do you think the parent knows? What do you think the student has translated home to the parent? What's the expectation on the parent? What's the expectation on the student? And do you think it came full circle? And if you aren't sure it came full circle, how do we remedy that, right? And I can say, for one, as a parent who's had 2 kids come through this building and a 3rd who's here, I haven't seen any of these processes go exceptionally well. And I'm sitting in a seat where I pretty much should know, you know what I mean? Sitting as one of 9 board members, I should pretty much know most of that stuff. Absolutely. And so I think there's room for us to improve. And I think you got a lot of hungry parents, by and large, who are really willing to help and want to be a part of that and a part of their students' learning. They just don't, and maybe I'm naive in saying a bunch, but I do think the majority of our parents do want to do that. They need to be equipped to be able to do that, you know? So I would, with everybody here, I would just encourage that, to really try to involve the parent. You know, I'd try to involve the parents more and really communicate with students. I could say many things that my 9th grader has said to me that have made me very sad for where he sees things that I think, oh, we're running a well-oiled machine, this is great. And then he says something and I'm like, I can't believe you don't know that. I can't believe you aren't plugged into that. You aren't aware of that. So it's not just critical of you. I think it's overarching, just we got to be able to do a better job so that the 9th grader, the 10th grader, the 11th grader, these are awesome opportunities that we have for them. You know, and we're going to move on and talk about the balanced scorecard, and there's something still missing in what we're doing. And I think bringing those parents in, it can never be a bad thing.
Absolutely.
And over-communicating can't be. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your detail.
Any further questions from members of the board?
Yeah, so I think I might have got lost in the last part of this conversation a little bit, so I apologize in advance. So first is, can you explain what you mean about 3rd graders taking high stakes tests?
Listen, our students begin PSSAs at the elementary levels. So as far as if our sole purpose for finals and midterms is to help prepare kids for high-stake examinations, whether it is a cosmetology student that needs to take their state certification after they're done at Forbes, or a student also at Forbes taking NOCTI exams, or a student taking ACT or SAT. Those students are they are getting opportunities to take some of those high stakes testing from young grades. So if we are looking at, if that is one of the sole reasons that we are doing finals and midterms, would it make more sense that our students maybe do a project where they are working in a group and working on some of those soft skills things, as well as not just the curricular whatever the subject material may be in that particular class.
So high stakes tests, in your opinion, are the state and federal level PSSA tests versus kids learning how to study and manage for a midterm and final?
No, I don't think so, but I think we sometimes add some extreme stresses to kids when we start telling them that we have finals and we have midterms and all those things. So I think we just need to be conscious of that.
And you think those stressors are something considerable for us to understand that some kids just can't manage the stress of the midterm and finals, but so we want to reduce their stress, basically. Is that what you're saying? Like, because when they get to college, won't they take midterms and finals? And they'll do the same in a career and technical school. So I'm just trying to map the link between the two.
Yeah, they may take finals. I'm not certain. They may have a finalized paper to do. They might have a project to do as a group as well. So, I mean, the idea that a kid is sitting for a final at the end of every class isn't necessarily true anymore.
Mr. Caligari, if I can interject, one of the things we talk about often is that continuum of assessment and having authenticity of assessment. And so I think what I'm hearing Mr. Bachman say is merely the exposure. So the exposure of a midterm and final, what is the value of it? We have to begin to ask that question. There is potentially merit for having a midterm and a true final. But what we're finding as we're conducting our walkthroughs is we see an equity across the building. We see some teachers that are giving a note card as a 3.5 by 5, and kids are allowed to put down formulas and things of that nature. Then we see in the next classroom the next kids receiving a 8 by 7, and then we go to an 11.5. So again, the question has to begin is what is the value of the midterm and the final? Where are we placing that value? And then how can we create equity and stability across that so students have a similar experience as opposed to having a different experience across classrooms? To the point that we're talking about continuum assessment, there are opportunities where some teachers are giving a unit-based midterm. That's not really assessing what a midterm truly is. And so I think we have to start back to the redefinition phase of what are we trying to accomplish here? What are we getting out of this? What are our students learning from this experience? And what are the takeaways from their perspective as well? So I think the first piece is stability and continuity across the building. The next piece really is engaging our students and hearing from them about what that experience looks like. Because from my vantage point, it seems to be different from different students as they matriculate through the system. And we just need to have a better grasp on that, is I think what I'm hearing Mr. Bachman say, but I'm also speaking from my experience of being inside the classrooms and observing it. The other piece I would suggest is, he mentioned the instructional time. So I challenged the high school team. I don't know if they took me up on this challenge. I don't want them to respond to that. But I said to them, I would take every lesson plan and I would dump it into AI, and I would ask AI to tell me every time the word review has happened in the last X amount of weeks. I'm not suggesting a review isn't important. What I am suggesting is sometimes we're losing 6 instructional periods to review. So again, going back to the value of the assessment. Not saying a review isn't important, but if we have one teacher doing a 43-minute review and then we have another teacher doing 216 minutes or 3 or 4 instructional periods of review, again, can we find some stability in that space?
Okay, I'll digest that for a while. I don't think I'm necessarily following the logic, and it's probably because I'm not an educator. So I'll digest that, but and obviously I have great faith in the administration at Plum. The other thing is, when you say about kids feeling stressed, is there something that the administration is recommending to allow us to provide a resource to help students who may be feeling this high level of stress, whether it's for taking, these PSSAs, or if they have a legit midterm and final? I mean, we have 3 social workers and we have counselors, but is there something else we can be doing to help the students?
Yeah, and I think it's really individualized with every single kid on the way that they're feeling, and I think our staff does do an excellent job of having those individual conversations with those kids when those warning signs are being exhibited by our students.
Mr. Caligiuri,
Okay.
you heard me mention earlier that we're having conversations internally and we're looking externally at other supports and resources in other school districts. So that's something that is evolving, and the one thing I have learned in my experience here at Plum is that this board has been very responsive when we've come with a recommendation that supports students to move it forward. But we want to make sure that we do a thorough investigation in regards to making any recommendations in regards to that. And I think you with your background, would truly appreciate what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, I just want to be very proactive when it comes to things like stressors for our youth. If you remember, we went to the counselors, psychologist, and the special education department, and the school board initiated conversations to say, hey, during COVID, what do you need? And they're the ones who came up with the plan for the 3 social workers. And so I just want us to be proactive, if that makes sense. So if you see a need, this is the place to come to present those things to us by email or here at a meeting, because, we're spending all this money on facilities, but I want to make sure we're spending money on kids. And the facilities is for the kids, don't get me wrong, but, sometimes there are just good uses of funding, and the board has the ability to make those accommodations. Yeah, just something to keep in mind. The midterm, final, and testing and stuff, that's something I just really need to digest, and maybe I need you all to educate me a little bit on it. So I'll ask some questions, but I really appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions and listen to me.
Any other board members have any questions or concerns about this program of study?
One more question, I'm sorry. Mr. Manzer, the global business course, or I guess Mr. Bachman, you can answer this. The global business course, is that the one tied to the McCann funds?
It's not.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, do we have 5 to move the high school program of studies forward? Thank you. Okay, balanced scorecard, what we've all been waiting for.
Let's say next, Dr. Anderson, is the balanced scorecard. As the board is aware, this is our annual board report where we review our 6 strategic goals with our key performance indicators, KPIs. I just want the board to be mindful that with our comprehensive plan due later in the fall and finalizing our portrait of a graduate, this is a perfect time to take a closer look at our balanced scorecard, our KPIs, to ensure that we are aligned throughout our systems. I would like to come back after we're finalizing our comprehensive plan, as we mentioned earlier, that we need to be flexible. And I think it would be a good time to have a conversation in regards to the goals that we set forth 3 years ago. Are they going to be aligned with our new comprehensive plan and with the information that we just got from the community and the portrait of the graduate? I'm not saying that these should go away. I'm saying that maybe we should look at this through a different lens. I would also recommend that, the board has a responsibility to evaluate. And I don't believe once a year in regards to looking at how we're performing academically is enough. Where I would like to start having conversations in regards to KPIs, in regards to student performance, in regards to what we are doing to decrease incidents at the referrals to the principals in regards to discipline, what we are doing to improve student achievement, and come back periodically to this board and give you updates. So I think there was a point in time where the balanced scorecard, just a touch point once a year, met that need. But I feel like as we're evolving as a district, this board needs to be informed, and I'd like to have multiple touch points in regards to moving forward. So that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Boyers and our administrators to my right, who have been waiting patiently to get to this point of the agenda.
Yeah, I think just one thing to add before I start is, Dr. Anderson, I think you said it best, is about the program of studies, is the ability to remain agile. And so the balanced scorecard is a nice barometer for us to measure, but it doesn't really always allow us to be agile because set arbitrary benchmarks that continue to move. And so sometimes we have to readjust those throughout. And so I think, looking at, as we move forward with the portrait of a graduate, the comprehensive plan, can we have a better barometer of how we can assess that and truly report out to the board and community at large of how we're faring in these initiatives. Next slide, please, Jen. Obviously, our balanced scorecard does align to all of our goals. As Dr. Walsh said, I want to extend a thank you to our administrative team and obviously their faculties that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting of this work. Next slide, please, Jen. Our primary goal is keeping our schools safe. The Plum Borough School District has acknowledged that as a top priority and has received external acknowledgement of that position at this point in time. I'm happy to report that we are making good progress towards our goals. We are receiving positive feedback from our students and our parents that they feel well prepared during response times in an effort that if an emergency would prepare itself, we would respond appropriately. Looking at 1.2, we are slightly under the margin. We're 0.3 away, but we are trending in a positive space there by making good progress to continue to grow in that space. For 1.3, annually we take a look at our surveys that are deployed externally for parents and as well as the surveys that are deployed to our staff and then our transitioning grade students. So our journeying 12th graders or 8th graders, which are in the high school, they all participate in that survey. And so there was an opportunity here to remain agile and readjust and change one of our questions. So this year will be our baseline year. If we modify the balanced scorecard, that may rear its head in whatever report for it is forthcoming. Next slide, please, Jen. One opportunity that continues to remain in safety and security, and I think Mr. Caligiuri, you hit on this, is really about, again, how do we talk about the programmatic supports that we have in place for students? How do we really get out in front of that? We know they exist. We know that we have 3 social workers. We know we have X amount of counselors. But what are we doing as an institution to really promote and publicize the good work of those folks? And so although we're making decent progress there, there's a significant opportunity to really think differently about how we share those supports and how we go about not only internally, but externally to ensure that parents and students both feel comfortable. Moving into student achievement and academic rigor and growth. For 2.1 and 2.2 specifically, there's a document up to the left-hand side there. It's the annual comparable data document. Jen, if you would indulge me in jumping in that document. And Mrs. Stepnick, I remember standing here last year in December and you had some questions for me and I thought to myself, well, again, how are we proactive? And I felt that I was answering a lot of those questions, which is appropriate, but there's also a lot of people over there who should be answering those questions. And then you and I kind of talked to you off on a few more meetings prior to Make-A-Wish and so on and so forth. But again, how are we positioning ourselves? How are we being responsive to the celebrations that we want to celebrate, but also acknowledging the opportunities? And so in preparation for this evening, really working with our building principals and their teams, you'll see a document here that outlists school by school on every page. It shows a comparable of the 22-23 to the 23-24 in achievement. It also lays beside that the state assessment and where the state fell in those averages. I think it's always important to benchmark against the state, but I don't want to fall prey to necessarily comparing ourselves to the state because we understand there's a lot of districts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Where that divide is, it goes into the growth measure. And so thinking about how our students are growing as they come in our classrooms from day one until they leave our classrooms and matriculate to the next grade level. And so again, taking our images of how progress is made or not being made, you can see that there. But underneath, I think was a neat opportunity really to think about succinctly what are those celebrations and strengths so our principals can go back with their faculty and honor those, but still acknowledge that a lot of work needs to occur in this space. And so then, again, you have the opportunities. And then lastly, positioning what are our actionable items that we can bite off in the second semester and move into the following school year. And so each school has acknowledged their areas of opportunity and have put actionable steps forward that will be living and breathing through their action plans, but also living and breathing within their buildings as they continue to do the quality work that they're doing day in and day out. So without going through that, you can see there are some glaring opportunities and there are also some unique celebrations. And so we want to honor those. But again, giving the board an opportunity to really look at some tangible information to gnaw on about where are we planning to position ourselves. One of the things I've spoken about previously as well with this board is the acknowledgement that we need to figure out writing, open-ended response to us in mathematics and ELA and in biology and science at times continues to be a thorn in our sides. And how are we going to address that? One of the neat pieces coming forth is the opportunity to pilot a new assessment called Firefly. Firefly sits under the DRC domain where CDT sits as a diagnostic, but Firefly is standards-based. So the difference is that we are seeing not necessarily what the ceiling is for our students, but we're seeing what the students know and don't know in real time based upon the standards that have been taught. The second piece that Firefly introduces is a lot of the state assessments are moving to text-enhanced questions. So drags and drops, manipulation, things of that nature. So it's giving our students that immediate exposure. We're also seeing that parallel into the secondary world where students aren't necessarily just answering multiple choice questions. They're having to manipulate and do things. So again, there's exposure. But the most important piece, in my opinion, is the open-ended response. And so the Firefly assessment is aligned to the STEEL standards, which are brand new standards for science. But it also gives our students exposure to rigorous open-ended opportunities. And so again, our teachers will have that data to respond to that. One of the unique things about the state assessments is we can see those open-ended responses, we can see the value of those responses and how our students fared, but what we don't always know is what is the alignment to the eligible content. So some of our teachers are left guessing about what that looks like. The state doesn't come out and say it's aligned to algebraic operations 1.1.2. However, with this exposure to Firefly, we'll see exactly what the open-ended response was and how our students fared, so we can kind of trigger and triage into that and understand what that means to us. So again, that'll be a new opportunity that's being piloted in some of our buildings this year, so we can look at that data and learn from it.
Which building?
PIVIC is utilizing it in one of the grades. Dr. Shulo, HP, is utilizing it in one of the grades. Middle school is, I think, 7th grade. Miss Fight, you are utilizing Firefly, and I think biology, Mr. Lazaro, I can't see you, but shake your head if you.
Bio doesn't have it yet because the STEEL standards aren't, they're not deployed for bio this year, but math and English are.
Thank you. So math, my apologies, math and English are deployed. So we are deploying across, the state is really, we're in this space now that we have the data, so what? So we're getting some guidance from Brian Stanford and members of the AIU, and they're kind of in pause too, but at least we'll have the localized data to take a look. And the other piece that I fed the board through our executive summary is our data warehouse. And so what is the opportunity to put that data into one of those tools if we so choose that, or make that recommendation, and what is that going to look like for us?
And I'm guessing because it's a pilot, there's a review that's happening, building and with you guys to know how are the teachers using it, how is it faring?
Yes, ma'am.
So there should maybe be some data to provide back to us at a later time.
But again, it's right now it's on the student individualized based level. So like if I use Mr. Gauntner, for example, when he's going through his scores, he's seeing Ashley Boyer's grade 3, and then here's my level. So what the cumulative piece of that is really looking at a student on the individual level, but also understanding the global perspective of how did my 3rd grade fare, or how did Mr. Boyer's class versus Miss Smith compare. That's some of the other analytics we're looking for from the Firefly tool.
But you're not getting that now?
Not now. Right now we're getting individualized student reports that are showing us how the student is faring in that moment of time. Yep. But again, there's going to be an expansion. What we're hearing from PDE and DRC, there's going to be an expansion upon that. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
I've got a question. Because I went back through and I had saved, I thought on my computer, like screenshots of prior, because I'm very agitated with math and ELA in particular. And I can't find them. I actually thought they were saved in here, but they're not. And so I would like to know this. We did this transition to Chromebooks. I particularly hate them for those 2 subject matters because, one, our kids don't have a physical book in their hand. So we're not teaching them to go pick up a book and read it. And maybe I'm old school, but there's a piece to that there's a correlation to their learning. And I don't believe, I think it's a nationwide problem since we've gone to everything being digital. The one thing I'm loving this year is, as much as I'm like, Alex, can't you just turn in your math assignments like it's a nightly conversation? My son's writing math, like where he wasn't always doing that. And so these kids don't even write properly because we've never, like there's a whole drop off of this with these Chromebooks. So I would like to see where we fared prior in those two particular subject matters prior to COVID versus where we are now and the implementation of all this great technology, we've lost sight. And I say now we, the district, we as the world of education, lost sight of some of the basic things kids need to be able to do that they're legitimately not doing anymore. And does that have any correlation to their learning?
There's 2 points I'd like to bring up in regards to, it's an excellent.
I was trying to look at our own scores,
Yeah,
right?
it's
and
an
I thought I
excellent
had them,
question.
and I don't have them, so that frustrated me, but.
I'll give you just a couple data points. About 7 years ago, I stood right where Dr. Boyers is, and I showed the launch pad that had 47 out of the 75 pink, which meant our students were losing ground compared to other students within the state. A few years later, I stood in that same spot, and it was down to 19. It's because of the good work that you see from the people behind you, that our kids were not only growing, but they were accelerating. Plum is experiencing what every district is experiencing. So right now, comparing that data now, and I'll get to the Chromebook piece, to before COVID is a challenge. And even in my conversations with other districts, they're seeing the same thing that we're seeing in regards to, how we have to change our instructional approach in regards to, formative assessments and catching kids where that sweet spot is of where they're at and how we can build upon that. That being said, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, when I said math was going to be the first in cycle, I think I heard a hooray and you were sitting over there. Because it's a point that it's an area that as a district we have struggled in. The goal at that point in time was that all of our resources were not aligned to the new PA core standards. They were aligned to legacy standards. They were dated. And even the other day when I ran into World Languages, who was in cycle this year, and it's the last piece of the cycle, the teacher shared with me that they haven't had a resource review for 24 years, and we're asking them to create the content and the materials, and that's not fair to them, is what I told them. And I also said, feel free to share your frustrations with our board. Now, that being said, we have these wonderful tools and resources. What we've been talking about in our SAC meetings is it's no longer a resource review, it is a program review to address exactly what you were saying, to start taking a deep dive into what are the resources we're using, what is working, what does research tell us, what is our data telling us, and we're in the process of building that out to address that specific question. It is not lost on us in regards to the resources and the data and how our kids are learning. So that is something that you're going to start seeing in more detail in regards to a program review. Because in some content, we may need to have more physical resources than others. Right. So that is in the process of coming forward. And Dr. Boyers, I know you and I have talked about this. If you'd like to add anything to that.
No, I mean, I think the one thing I would add, even with our math program reviews coming back in cycle next year, we're already in year 0 of our program review. We're doing math walks. So before we went into math program review, our resources were so outdated in the 80s that we had to address the resource. And pedagogy, unfortunately, didn't take a back seat, but took a side seat.
Sure.
And so now we have good resources in place. We have good tools in place. It's about equipping our teachers with the ability, again, to the data warehouse of how do we take all of this data that we do have now, when we were data poor, now we're data rich, making sense of it, analyzing it, looking at a student holistically and how they're moving about. And we're spending this time doing math walks looking at horizontal bands. So when we walk into 3 different teachers in 6th grade, what is happening in that classroom? Are our learning goals aligned? Can we find out in the curriculum where we are? Is there a gap in that curriculum? So our analysis on these walks in year 0 are going to give us good data next year to go into as a math team. What do we need to celebrate? But hey guys, we've done a whole year of walkthroughs now. What opportunities do we need to spend time on, and where does the data point us in? So that's kind of going to be part of our North Star going into next year's program review.
I still believe these things are part of the problem.
Especially with math. I mean,
Right, 100%.
Math is, you see it, you write it, you
Right.
You know, you learn your fractions, you learn adding, subtracting, and, you know, something I do for a living, but, you know.
Do you use paper when you do that, or do you just use computer?
Paper or my head, and my children look at me and say, how do you do that in your head? And it's just because you learned and you saw it, and you can do columns, and I can add numbers in my head really quick. Yeah, I think these, but again, it's not just a Plum problem.
No, it's a whole problem, period, but like, doesn't mean we have to continue doing that just that way.
Yeah, just because the road's doing it doesn't mean.
I don't really care. I want to know what happens
I'll
here.
save the topic, but I'll just bring an awareness to it, that another layer to this conversation is artificial intelligence. And looking at that as a tool to how can we adapt it to meet the needs of our students individually. How can that be a tool to free up our teachers' time in order to give them more time on task with our students? So there are multiple areas in which we're looking at, and we're building out those teams in order to come back, because there's going to be many recommendations in regards to moving forward in regards to program review, artificial intelligence, and what it looks like teaching and learning going into the future. So,
Sorry guys, I'm sure you hate me tonight. I apologize.
They got a list of us, so it's.
Well, I'm sure on the top, that's fine.
And then the last piece for under academics that we reported out on our AP. One, our AP participation for eligible students, but also how our students are faring. As we heard earlier, we may have to reposition this based upon where the portrait of a graduate takes us. But what we do see here is we had an uptick in students taking AP, although we had more students eligible. With that said, though, the students who did participate in our AP exams, they fared much better, and our students are showing that they're able to handle these assessments and fare well on these assessments. So that's a positive note to report on. And then lastly, under academics is just the notion of the engagement in the classroom and how students and parents are reporting on that. We are seeing a slight dip there. And it's interesting to report on that, given the fact that we're hearing conversations from design team members and portrait of a graduate that students need to have some experience and exposure to failure. Failure as adversity and overcoming adversity and resiliency. And so I'd like to think that as we continue to strategically plan for the portrait of a graduate, that would be layered in and addressed through that as well.
Can I make them hate me even more? Can you go back to slide 5? And slide 5, the last question concerns me, and the drop in it concerns me, and 2.3, right? The question doesn't ask anything except for, is it engaging and do they want to learn more? And the fact that at our high school, where they have the most opportunity to choose classes, right, we're at a 62%, we dropped 10% from that perspective. They're only at Pivic, and I would ask, what's happening at Pivic that's awesome to even be able to expound on it for O-Block, but how is it that we have 30% of our student body that doesn't think that it's engaging? Like, even that I should be engaged with this, that I'm happy to learn more. I don't know, and I mean, listen, I'm an educator. I have been an educator. I know what it means to be in a building where I'm working hard and the guy beside me isn't working hard. So I'm not generalizing to our staff, but how can our students not feel engaged? And then if you get to slide 6 and you look at the question being that the overall work is challenging, well, hold on, if I take that full circle, if I didn't feel engaged, then why did I want to do it? Well, now, am I challenged? Sure, I'm challenged because I didn't even really want to learn to begin with because it wasn't engaging for me. And now I'm challenged and I might be failing, and then look at our test scores. And I can't promise to say, and that's why you guys are getting paid the big bucks, but like what that exactly is from a solution standpoint. But I do think there has to be, and I think you said it too, like we got to keep it simple. There's all this technology and all this stuff available, but education is education. Without AI, without anything else, fundamentally keeping it simple that students are able to learn and that we have teachers who are engaging them in learning. And again, you know, I will chuck listening to 4 years of high school from 3 of my kids, right? So that's, well, 8 years worth plus 1 now is 9. The things that I hear that are disengaging in those buildings drives me insane. And I will say, was it better in the middle school? Yeah. Was it incredible at Pivot? Yeah. I don't know what happens in there that, and again, I was a high school educator. Like, I know what it means to have to engage teenagers. I know I have to be creative. Sometimes I have to look like a fool. Sometimes I have to work really hard to get my students engaged. But that's what we're paying them to do, right? And so, I don't know. The engagement question really bothers me. And what bothers me more, if I really think about the data and linger too long on it, these are the kids who took the time to take the survey. These aren't even the ones who
Why
didn't.
would you say that out loud?
Well,
I'm gonna go to sleep thinking
right?
about that
Like,
tonight.
Yeah, but that's, to me, that's the part where it keeps me up at night of thinking, what are we doing? Again, worrying, Mike, to your point about facilities, about all these, and it's all about them, and I know that it all ends up being about the student, but at the end of the day, how can we have a strategy that is, when that kid goes into that building at 7:30 and leaves at 2:30 or 8:45 and leaves at 3:45, are they engaged? Are the adults who are working with them engaging them? And I know for you guys as instructional leaders, that is a ton. And even down to Mrs. Griggle, I hear awesome things about your people in the cafeteria. Like, it's everybody, it's all these adults, it's taking a village to do this, but, you know, and some kids aren't as blessed as others. I get that, but engaging them so that they're learning. That's, to me, that just stood out at me beyond belief. And I could go into AP in college and high school and all the different pieces, but to me, those two questions really hit me hard as like, I thought we were running well-oiled machines. Okay, guys, like we just have to continue to work harder, you know?
Dr. Anderson, I think when you look at the portrait and what's the preliminary data that's coming out in regard to those soft skills and those experiences we want kids to have,
Yeah.
I can't help but believe that's going to address that.
Yeah.
But there needs to be an instructional shift to align to our comprehensive plan, to align with our portrait that needs to be aligned instructionally in every classroom, K through 12. Kids want to engage, they want to collaborate.
Yeah.
And if you look at the soft skills, that has to change what teaching and learning looks like. It's not stand and deliver, it's having kids engaged. And to Mr. Bachman's point is, mid-year, end-of-the-year assessment the most valuable use of their time, or is it a performance task that needs to be completed, or some sort of collaborative project working together where they're going to have to apply and use that Webb's depth of knowledge and those higher level thinking skills in order to truly understand these concepts and to be engaged with one another. So I do see a connection with this, but it needs to be aligned and it needs to be a living, breathing document.
Yeah, and I'm excited for it, and I'm excited for it to make its way through and empower you guys to be able to lead from an instructional perspective, because it equips you with, equipping is the wrong word, it empowers you with something to be able to unify language, unify strategy, and go after it. But we have to go after it. We have to go after it. A teacher can't sit in the front of the room while kids are cheating in the back of the room because they're too lazy to stand up and walk and see them cheating. That can't happen. But again, that means you have to stand up. Like, you have to make your way around the room. You as the teacher have to be engaged in order for kids to feel like they can be engaged, right? And I know that's hard for you guys in buildings with lots of teachers, but I think we're going to empower you with something that I hope can really not just be one more thing that we do, but can really help you drive that.
An early
to
preview.
your point, Dr. Anderson, though,
Yeah.
my little experience here in the high school, but it's not
Yeah,
very
sure.
long. Making sure that everyone is looking at their, whether it be their tests, their quizzes, is the content up to date? Is that, because then depending on the subject matter, then it's all of a sudden like, I've lost that kid because it's not applicable to today based on the topic, right? Or is there a tool that the teacher needs to be successful to make the kids successful and to feel like they're a part of something? And I think we need to really hone in on those individual classrooms and making sure that we've got it right.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I privately can give you several examples And it's frustrating to see, and I don't think it's meant intentionally, of course, but I think it's just more of the constant checklist before you come back to school, right? And how do we help you?
Yeah.
Is there something we can provide you to help you?
Yeah.
And not let it go. And having somebody in a classroom say, yeah, I need something, before it gets to be too late.
Yep.
I might be the lone person out here, but I feel like that question is very confusing.
Engaging?
Like if I read that and somebody said, is it appropriately engaging? I might say yes, but do I want to learn more? No. You know, so it's saying, is it engaging and you want to learn more? I think we want to get at, is it engaging so you want to learn more, right? So I don't know, I think that as a student, if I'm reading that, I might be saying, yeah, it's engaging, but now I don't want to learn more, so they're going to mark the no to that question.
That makes me feel a little bit better to say it that way, and then I would say then we need to clarify, and I know we're going to review.
We're going to review it, is what I was going to
how
make.
we're doing it, but
Feedback on the
yeah.
It needs to be aligned to where we're going. And,
Right.
you know, what our thinking was 3 years ago, it's different moving forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Conversations, if there's any merit to it, the conversations we have as we walk into classrooms are the conversations of what are you learning, how are you learning it, what are you going to do with it, and not what are you doing. We're trying to get students to get away from that place of, well, I'm doing this, I'm reading poetry. Okay, but why am I reading poetry? Well, I'm looking for theme, and I'm looking for, but why? So what does it apply to? So those are the conversations we do our administrative walks, as we do our building walkthroughs. We're trying to get kids to think metacognitively about why you're doing what you're doing. It's not about you're reading poetry. That there's value in reading poetry. That's not really what you're doing. What you're doing is looking for metaphors. So we're trying to shift that mindset a little bit too as we're doing our building walks and really having conversations with kids. But it doesn't mean that our engagement can't get better. But I would concur, and I didn't want to say it as the administrator on the floor. So thank you.
Yeah, and
Dr.
even
Dixon.
if it is, even if it is, I still think it's a learning to me, but.
Now, the hardest part of the balanced scorecard is done. I feel it the last 2 years, so now I'm going to take the baton and hand it over.
We're going to keep some of our administrators engaged in this conversation.
I think they're falling asleep.
We did our budget workshop last month, so we touched on many of these items in the presentation and address these KPIs and charts and graphs. I'm not going to touch on them all again. Just from a high level overview though, I'll give one to the Penn Staters out there is we are maximizing fiscal responsibility. But we're achieving 5 out of 6 of our goals.
Yeah,
Dr. Walsh even missed it, so you'll have to review the video. But we are achieving 5 out of 6 of our goals, which I'm proud of as a district that we're able to sustain and achieve these financial goals and continue to make progress. I'm going to introduce, if you have any questions on any of the ones I didn't touch on, please let me know. But I want to give, Mr. Hartman has done an excellent job on 3.1 cyber charter enrollments and 3.3 alternative sources of revenue. I want to give him an opportunity to overview what he's been doing to achieve these goals for those 2 items.
Please no Penn State references.
I'll keep it short. Thanks, Ryan. Again, every year we look at our cyber and charter enrollments, and I run reports through Sapphire with our PIMS reporting and registrations and enrollments, and kind of identify those families that are new, that have left the district or moved into the district but were already placed in a cyber or charter school before they came to Plum. And each year I reach out, make connections with those families and contact, and kind of throughout the year check in. And then in the springtime, we really do kind of our heavy lift of pushing out marketing campaigns to those families and really selling the PDLA program and the opportunities, not just online, but also what our individual school buildings can offer those families. And that really starts with having those conversations and taking the time to get to know those families and their circumstances. So we've done a really good job. We've gotten really lucky at bringing those families back, and obviously, you know, that offsets the cost of those vouchers to those cyber and charter schools. And then in regards to 3.3, you know, again, there's a lot of team efforts in regards to these grants and finding opportunities and really projects that we're interested in doing, but we wouldn't be able to do if we didn't have alternative revenue. So finding ways that we can capitalize on federal, state, and local grants to fund those projects, and not just fund the projects, but how are they helping us grow in relation to, you know, building expansions and Portrait of a Graduate and program of studies and course offerings, really making sure that we're utilizing those funds to help move the district in a good direction. And so I'm happy to report this year, you know, we've utilized federal, state, and local grant opportunities. So, you know, we'll keep hitting the ground as hard as we can and try to drum up opportunities that we can, you know, utilize any of the funds that are out there, really. So, any questions relating to those two?
Aren't we well above 400,000 then? We weren't at that point that the measurement came last year.
Ryan, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, it's always the debate of what is alternative sources and what is not, but
Okay.
I think you could certainly stretch that number. We're a little strict and maybe undervalued there, but certainly moving forward as well in the items that we could potentially see here in 24, 25, related to these projects that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Other funding that we're chasing as well is that you know, there's some high potential to reach, you know, some very high numbers here, so millions of dollars.
Okay.
Yep. And then I'll introduce the next, is there any more questions on goal 3? Okay. I'll introduce Mr. Loletta as well as the operational team here. He's spent a lot of time on this goal. Come on up. And I know you always like to hear from him directly as well as our operational team. So we're going to have Mrs. Griggle come up as well, Mr. Coles, Ms. Schaefer, and Mr. Carpin. Really, I want to thank this operational team. Mr. Loletta and Ms. Griggle have been around for many years here and do an excellent, excellent job. And the additions of the rest of the team here have been really great to have in the district, and they're doing an amazing job. So you'll hear a little bit more from each of them.
Sure. So first and foremost, thank you. I lead the team of the Satisfy Our Customers and Community, and our goal specifically aims to improve satisfaction levels across various aspects of the district's operations and educational purposes. You can see the team behind me that works alongside me, and Ms. Macker also works with us throughout these goals. The goal specifically is made up of 5 KPIs, 4 that currently have data attached to them. Unfortunately, you're going to see across the board that, you know, out of those 4 that have data attached, we didn't meet any of the goals. 2 we did improve performance results on, and you can see that as well. I'll briefly go over a few of them, just starting with 4.1, where you see, and I don't want to read every question, but you can see that specifically asking our parents and our students about academics, which we kind of just went over, which I think is probably in relation to what we just talked about, is are we satisfied with the academic programs overall? And we slightly dipped there and didn't meet our goal. We spoke about some of the things that you know, we put in place in the past, all the resources we brought over the past several years, and then some of the things in our approach moving forward with Portrait of the Graduate, having a clear vision as we move forward, I think is going to absolutely help that moving forward. We're doing several things to enhance that, you know, with the AI, with Portrait of a Graduate, so hopefully we see that number increase in the future. 4.2 is specific to our departments, and you're going to see questions that are both on the parent survey and the student survey that are directly impacted to our departments. I know previously we wanted to break down our department links by percentages, so we do have a hyperlink there if you want to look at the increases by department and what those are. But we did increase in performance results, which I'm proud to report that. We didn't meet our goal, but we did. This is one of the areas that we did increase. And I wanted to give the group an opportunity to also kind of report some of the things that were the highlights that we've been doing throughout the few years. We created a document where we keep progress on it so that we can make sure we're holding ourselves accountable and we're doing different things to make ourselves better. I'll quickly share two that we've done in the technology department that I'm pretty proud of, and then I'll let the others speak. But one of them is we implemented 2 years ago a customer satisfaction survey with our ticket system. And that was specifically to get feedback from our end users as we resolve tickets. And it allows them to evaluate us and it allows them to give us feedback. And we're 2 years into it and we are sitting at 97% positive rate, which I'm really happy and proud of my team for that specific rating. The second one I'll mention, and I'll give all the credit to Ms. Smith sitting over there, is the Rachel's Challenge, where we've adopted this in our district. Ms. Smith put together a phenomenal plan where we have our students engaged, K through 12, where they do different artwork for related to computers. We pick winners quarterly and we put them out on social media. And you're going to see back there on the wall we have Rachel Challenge Tech Department winners, and we update them periodically, and it's been pretty popular and pretty cool. I'll let the others speak about some of the things that they're doing.
So some of the things we've done some equipment upgrades. I've had vendors come in and do more sampling. I've done sampling at the elementary schools to get the students more engaged. And I also think the Rachel's Challenge has really had our workers engage more with the students. We give away little things and acknowledge the kids, and it's created a great atmosphere.
Two of the biggest things I'll say for transportation, one of which I have to thank you guys for, was adding an additional manager in our department. Having that additional person allows for more community engagement. First thing in the morning used to be me there from 5 to 8 by myself. I'm trying to answer phone calls, answer radios, answer emails. Didn't have the ability to do that all on my own. Having that additional manager, thanks to you all approving that, gives me that ability to be able to not only myself work with these parents and students in the district and drivers, but give somebody else that opportunity. Also, with the improvement in our technology, we have TransFinder now for our transportation software, which has given us a lot of efficiency as far as routing our students, timing on the vehicles, and then even going as far as to our tablet installation, which will give the drivers GPS turn-by-turn direction. So the technology upgrade that we have is helping immensely to grow our department and get it to a place where we need it to be.
Hello. I wanted to talk about the two projects that we're doing. You already heard all about the middle school, but the O Block 1 is one where we're adding 15,000 square feet, additional classrooms, and then the renovation of the rest of the building to make it accessible, ADA accessible, fire safety, life safety, all of those things that are very important to the students and the faculty and the staff. So that's the big things for me. Thank you.
Alright, so my department was KPI 4.3, so as you can see we were able to increase 3% from the previous year, so we still have some ways to go, but we were heading in the right directions. And just some of the things that we're constantly looking at is how we can continue to improve on giving the students more avenues and teams to play on. And since last year, we've added quite a bit, especially at the sub-varsity level. We're talking about middle school boys volleyball. We added flag football, which after this year, next year will become a PIAA sanctioned sport that we will now be able to have. We, as a club, mountain biking. We just added middle school swim for this season. This upcoming spring will be unified track and field's first season, so that'll be exciting. And then we're constantly going to be looking at the varsity sports. Anyone who doesn't have a JV, taking a look at numbers, see how we can add there, and continue to look to see how we can give our students more opportunities within our district.
Wait, before you move on, I have
Sure.
a question.
Absolutely.
That 4.3
Yeah.
question, is it specific to sports? Like, is that what it says on the parent survey? Like, it's specific to sports?
I think it's sports and activities, if I recall.
Because I think that's
Look at it.
if so, that might be another opportunity, because when I think extracurricular, I also think like clubs and the things that are happening outside of academics in the school. So,
Which I believe it references, it says extracurricular if I'm correct.
okay.
Extracurricular program.
Yeah, I believe so.
Because sports only, you might get a higher score. But when you add in the other extracurricular.
So to finish up, 4.4, I say this every time my presenters stand up here. I obviously am a little bit more closer to this, and anybody that lives in the community in the room. We want our students and our families to want to recommend us to anybody moving into Western Pennsylvania. I always say this specific KPI is going to be attached to everything we do on the balanced scorecard. So if we're doing good on the balanced scorecard, we're probably going to see these numbers go up. I'm glad they didn't dip too much, but obviously standing up here, you see a team of people that are willing to work, and obviously we all want to get that number up, and I think with a lot of the exciting things that we're going to be doing moving forward, that's going to increase as well moving forward. And I'll end with 4.5. We don't have any data for 4.5 right now. For those that have not been a part of the initial process in 21-22, we started to ask on the student survey if we can collect the senior contacts. In 22-23, we invited graduates in with the administrative team. We hosted them. We started to build out version 1 template of what that annual survey was going to look like. We sat on it for a little bit, continued to massage it. I know you all had some feedback in regards to what that was. December of last year, we were able to deploy our first annual survey, our postgraduate annual survey. We got that data, and we just deployed our second survey just recently, December 27th, and we're waiting. We have till January 27th to collect that. So we'll actually have 2 data points. With the first survey, we were able to create a baseline moving forward, so you will see if we reached our goal or not. And I think it's going to give us a better look at what we're doing and what we're doing good and what we can do better from our graduates.
Once it's updated, we'll add it to our summary for the board so that you can see the updates.
Questions?
No, I have some creative thoughts on how we can get better participation and working towards that with our graduates. So.
Absolutely. Always reach out and let me know.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all.
Well, I'd like to say that I had some level of influence on this data, but I have not after 35 days on the job. But you'll see on the KPIs 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3, our risk tolerance is pretty good in terms of our employee data. The first one talks about the absentee rate of our current employees. The second one talks about all of our support employees. And the third is talking about the turnover rate, not including retirement. I think 5.3 is the one that we are perhaps the most sensitive to in the current culture and market of education, due to the fact that, as Dr. Walsh foreshadowed, at one point the state was cranking out about 15,000 certificates a year, and now we're under 5,000. So, and I believe the last statistic was there hadn't been a physics certification issued in 2 years. So there's little nuanced data like that I don't think all districts have felt the pinch yet. And it's coming. It's probably going to get a bit worse before it gets better. But the good news is our tolerance, if you look at 5.3, is already under the 3% threshold out through 26, 27. So we're proud to have that. Next slide, John. If we look at 5.4, this is our turnover rate and support employees. You'll notice that it did go up a little bit from the previous year to 10.6%. It still is under the goal threshold, but there are some times where
We are sensitive to this through our collective bargaining agreements and our relationships with employees. And part of the talent management piece of my role in leading the district in that area is to make sure that we are providing competent people and encouraging our managers, supervisors, and principals on how to elevate and coach and encourage through that process. And so that's definitely something that has our attention, but not near the goal threshold at this point.
Dr. Thomas,
Yes.
something I think most of the board members are aware of, that in regards to building that relationship, we implemented this year with all the bargaining groups quarterly meetings in regards to getting feedback from the people that are really on the front line and giving them an opportunity to give us feedback. It's been very well received from all the bargaining groups, and it's something in regards to building relationships that we're going to continue. Because there's nothing more frustrating than being in a position and not having a voice. So we're going to continue to reach out and look at opportunities to build those relationships.
Moving on to 5.5, we look at our agree or strongly agree in the effectiveness of PD, professional learning, professional development. We are happy that this bounce ticked back up a little bit. And Dr. Boyers and I actually have been having a lot of sidebar conversations about what our professional learning strategies are going to be for the long term in order to engage employees, to promote higher order thinking skills and create critical thinking. We have a large number of new teachers, new educators, new people new to the profession as well as new to the district, and we know that trend is going to continue. So we are very much in trying to engage them in professional learning that's going to be relevant and timely than just simply checking boxes and doing things that are traditional. Under 5.6, you'll notice that the level of support employees has also been sustained, and this is very important to us too, because sometimes this is an area that in some districts I believe is overlooked, that we invest so heavily in teachers and educators that we maybe don't invest as heavily in support staff employees. Move on to the next one. Going on to measure against the best, 6.1, you'll notice that the districts that were sort of ranked there in the first block in 2022, in our baseline year, definitely we are in sort of a stagnant direction here, 31, 33, even as last year. I think it's important to note too that there are a lot of metrics, and we could have that correlation or causation argument. But the 5 that are referenced there do have operating budgets significantly higher than ours, and that does have some implication to what we can do for the long term in that. That's also one of the measures. Pittsburgh Business Times is one of those measures. Niche is number 2, and I think I'm saying that right? Niche. It's always niche or niche. It's niche.com. Again, this is a little bit different measure here, but we're coming up there a little bit short of where we want to be, but we're going to put this on our dashboard. And finally, 6.3 of the four-year cohort graduation rate. Districts definitely get a little bit of a bounce here for kids that transition or out of schools, as well as cyber charter schools that tend to nudge kids out at the last minute, which can affect your cohort graduation as well. But good news is we are sustained, and we are at 96.7% as of the 23-24 school year. Any questions? Oh, I forgot one. Sorry about that. 6.4. This is at the U.S. News and World Report rankings. We actually slipped a bit here to 50. Our goal for the 24 school year was 39. We did meet our goal in the previous year, but we slipped here a little bit in terms of the rankings. And again, this is that the ranking aspect and methodology is sort of, I hate to say subjective, but there's a lot of measures that go into this. Even though that the ranking might be the same, we did slip in this area, and so this is sort of a not a criterion reference ranking, but norm reference. So we just got ranked 50 out of that particular group. Is there any questions? Thanks.
I do.
Absolutely.
On 6.4, you answered part of my question, which was how do we drop from 39 to 50? But if I'm a potential resident moving to Western Pennsylvania and I'm looking at the area, we've also dropped to 226 in state ranking. We're behind Riverview, Bethel Park, Kiski, Hempfield, Franklin Regional, PT. So what can we be doing to portray to potential new residents and anybody looking to come over here to say, hey, we are a school district that should be measured against everyone else, but we're sitting at 226, and when I saw the schools that were ahead of us, a few of them, it was quite a bit surprising.
Yep. Well, the U.S. News and World Report ranking is a mixture of qualitative and quantitative data. So, of course, there's test scores, right? There's going to be, that realm. In the qualitative realm, I know that some of these come down to some rankings related to college and career readiness, AP attrition rates, SAT average scores. All of those would tie back to cultural things that we're trying to achieve through Portrait of a Graduate as well as our comp plan. This is not an area that I think we're really happy about at the moment because you're exactly right. If I'm a prospective resident, I'm going to go for the low-hanging fruit of things that I can read and understand and digest, or if it's bronze, silver, the label that people put on their website. So this is also a marketing piece that's going to be very important for us. I think we take multiple strategy approach with this. One is the Portrait of a Graduate. We're going to be able to align not only, since we've identified those 5 critical areas that we want to work on, critical thinking is going to be huge for us. But critical thinking for today's youth in Gen Z and now Gen Alpha, as Maria and Michael have in their buildings coming up, I think is going to look a lot different. And if our workforce does not adapt to that in terms of instruction and strategy, we will continue to see a negative shift here. The goal is, I think today's kids are a lot different when it comes to teaching them. And I think that's been foreshadowed in multiple conversations here. So if we come back to if we know what we want to achieve, we know what we want to achieve, we'll figure out the how. We'll figure out how we want to get there. Again, this is not something that I went line by line in understanding, but I can tell you from prior experience with U.S. News and World Report, there's some subjectivity to this particular assessment. I'm not trying to make excuses either, as much as it is definitely some subjectivity when it comes to how they measure SAT, ACT rates in terms of averaging, and also AP attrition rates. So it's a tough one.
So you're saying that part of the change goes down to the staff level in order to make adaptations and so on. Well, how is the administration going to cause those changes in the staff level when, having been in the staff, I think we have a top-notch teaching staff.
We do.
So when I look and I say that we have where we're ranked, it's like, why do we have such a talented teaching staff and yet we're ranked below school districts that potentially may not be as talented as the staff that we have here in the district?
My best analogy is if you see a piece of music in the key of C major, but everybody's playing it in D major, or nobody knows how to transpose. For those that are musicians in the room, trumpet is a B flat instrument. You see a C on the page, but you hear a B flat, right? If you don't know how to make those relationships and transpose the knowledge, you're going to make an error. So where this comes back so strongly to HR is the talent management piece is not only recruiting good talent, it's being able to work with good talent. And the good people over here on my left are going to be part of that team where we have to get, and I shouldn't say more serious, but more focused on how we give feedback to educators. And that comes from a standpoint of coaching and consultation and encouragement and sometimes even cheerleading. We've put a heavy emphasis on depth of knowledge. You've heard Dr. Walsh and Dr. Boyers, and I'm sure other people in the room. Webb's depth of knowledge comes down to this. At a DOK 1 level, we just are regurgitating or recalling knowledge. At a DOK 4 level, we're applying we're synthesizing, we're evaluating, we're having kids think differently about content. So the days of saying, let's memorize all the 50 big dates in U.S. history are probably gone, because on their iPhone they can pick it up in a matter of seconds. But if we teach a concept such as voter suppression or slavery or any concept over the course of time in terms of social studies, we teach them to look at, all right, what was the lens in this time frame versus another, to get them to critically think, to get them to have empathy for what happened in that particular point in history. And I think that kicks kids up to the higher order thinking skills that we need them to be there. But the staff here to the left, in addition to the rest of us, have got to have those critical conversations with people to say, that was a great lesson, that was a good lesson, but it could be a great lesson if you make these changes. It's not all wrong. It's not that it's broken, but here's how it could be awesome. And sometimes it's the educator standing back and saying, let me act as a facilitator rather than the stand and deliver model, or where we're actually just giving information. We're getting them to think. I believe that those are the kind of things, Mr. Skalski, that can definitely put that in place for the teachers. But we have to have those critical conversations. It's not a shaming. It's not a negative. It's a reframing. It's a coaching piece for that. So I think it really comes back. The critical piece is the critical thinking that we're seeing out of Portrait of a Graduate, which we hope to implement. And I know a couple people on this team have heard me say it a couple times in the last 35 days. Leading this kind of change is like turning a battleship in a narrow harbor when you have 5 tugboat captains pulling in 5 different directions, all screaming at each other that, which way should I go? We are guiding a staff of over 500 people, and it's going to take time and patience and coaching and emphasis and encouragement to get us there. Because if we can do that with our staff, I do believe that's going to trickle down and support our kids.
I would add, Mr. Tukolski, your frustration is my frustration, and I've been very open about my frustration in regards to, some of the comments you made in regards to where we're positioned. But I would also add that if, throughout the night, what you heard me say is we shouldn't be doing and having these conversations once a year. We need to come back. We need to keep this board informed. You heard Dr. Boyers talk earlier about we need a data warehouse. We need to have the data to drive us strategically to where we're going. And finally, we need to have the end in mind. The Portrait of a Graduate, the comprehensive plan. We need to let all the stakeholders know this is where we're going so that we can prepare and all row together. In regards to the example of the tugboats, the alignment that all 5 tugboats are all pulling in the same direction to get us there. So hopefully this board has heard me say and heard this administrative team that we are taking this very seriously, and even to the point where we want to redesign our balanced scorecard and keep coming back to keep this board informed about the good work that is happening here in the district and how it is benefiting our students.
I agree with you, and
Yeah.
Everything you suggested. I think the key point that you just made also is that to the outsider, to the public, not the educator that can understand all the detail. And as Dr. Henderson said about keeping it simple, they look at numbers. They're not reading paragraphs and chapters and reports. They're looking at the numbers. 500 plus school districts in the state of Pennsylvania, or whatever number it is, and Plum's at 229, but I can go and 20 miles away and live in a school district that's number 84. That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
And we may be losing some really good potential residents just because of the numbers, and not looking beyond that we've got a phenomenal staff. At all levels, from the elementary school to the 12th.
We just got to get them the right tools. And another thing that...
The incentive.
Yeah.
The administrators need to be willing also, at the same time that you're building the staff, you have to be willing to take and what is it, constructive criticism, to give the staff, hey, like you said, that was a great lesson, but here's what you can do to make it, and not just, hey, that was a great lesson, have a nice day.
Yeah. The other piece I should have mentioned is our pupil services. You know, we've added supports with an assistant director. We're building out pupil supports K through 12. And from my conversations in the building, we're already seeing those results. So I know, Dr. Anderson, it's 10 o'clock and we need to have another side vote.
Right, we just need to vote.
Before that, I would just like to thank the administrative team because some of them I will be talking to in about 6 to 6.5 hours about school tomorrow. And I just want to thank them and I appreciate their time and the good work that they have done to showcase this evening.
Yeah, and I hope, I know some of us had some things to say, myself very much so included, and I hope you guys know, we get to talk to them all the time. We don't get you guys here as often, and you being here at 10 o'clock at night and the time that you put in with our students every day, we know how much they mean to you. And we appreciate the work that you do and continue to do. And I think it's been said I think Mike said it, I think Mr. Sokolsky has said it, I think Michelle said it. If there are things that you need from the board, I think this is very much so a board that is students first, and we want to equip and empower in any way that we can. So please don't hesitate to let us know what those things are and what you're seeing, because we want to support you in whatever way we can. And we appreciate the support you're giving, and please drive safe.
Wait, did you say 6.5 hours? So does that mean potentially I could sleep tomorrow?
The guidelines are single digits and 10 below, so.
Don't dance around it.
12 wind chill already, so I'm just saying.
That's in Fayette and the mountains.
I don't know, you are not winning hearts and minds in my house.
Trust me, I'm not winning.
Oh my God, I got you know what? Dr. Walsh lied to us. I said, what do you mean? He said the first snow day was actual snow day. What am I having to do? Wake up to not even having a Google Meet. He's like yelling, I'm like, oh, Lord.
All right, if I can just have a quick motion from someone, because we're at 3 hours, and for those who we've never hit this point before, we can't go past 3 hours without a special vote to extend further. So can we say to extend for 30 and hopefully it's 7?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor? All right.
There's not much more to talk about.
There's not.
Okay, so we have letters F, G, and H. Under academic achievement and athletics, do we have any questions about those? Those are conferences for folks to attend. We have 5 to move those 3 forward. Awesome. And then we're at finance. Mr. Stropke, lead board liaison.
So item A is the standard budget. Is there any questions, or can we move that forward?
Good.
5.
Yep.
Item B is the renewal of the natural gas consortium. If you don't know, we're in a buying group with the AIU, which most of the school districts in Allegheny County belong to it. It's a good rate for our gas consumption. Mr. Andrew, do you have anything to add? I know I just did a 10-second.
That's spot on. We use Direct Energy. That group uses Direct Energy as a consultant, and this is their recommendation.
And they have a bunch of people that are experts in this field, get good rates, so that's why I move that forward.
Yep.
And the last item was the engagement letter for the federal tax credit program with the gentleman from Tucker, Orangeburg.
All right. Legislative, Ms. Stepnick, lead board liaison.
We have, we have 5 3-year spots coming up for nominations and elections for the IU. And I don't know that we would get another Plum board member appointed, but I mean, anything's possible. If anybody has any interest in running, if not, I can keep everybody apprised as to how the elections are going for our board.
Okay.
And at some point, I have to figure out what I could share from there and what would make sense for us. So I'm still like, I think Dr. Chavez and I sort of talked about that, like, before him coming from an IU, like, what does that look like? How do I give an update? Because it's so much business, right?
Yeah.
But there's some really great things coming that I think may help our business office and so many great things. So I want to make sure the board continues to support
I
Dr.
wonder if
Shield.
some of that comes through to the executive summary, if that's a better way, you know what I mean?
Maybe, and some of it, I don't know where we are, because we do have SMART goals and a variety of things, but they're developing some really great strategies, so, and some nice tools that all school districts can use in the IU.
And I do have a clarifying point for that. We can only have one board member on the
Okay, I
AAU
thought
board at a
that was
time.
it, yeah.
So if
So we
this
can't.
does not, if you are remaining on the board and
I
this
just
is not
got
one of your
elected for 3
spots,
years.
then we would not be able to accept
No.
any nominations if we
So-
already have someone on
I
the
just
board.
got elected, so
And
I'm
you
like,
wanna
I don't
stay
think
on it-
that's,
You want to stay on it, not run for one of those, right?
No, I just went through that.
Yeah. So I think it's.
So if
more
you're
things can I go
maintaining,
through?
yeah, if you're maintaining your seat, then this would kind
I
of
didn't
be
think you
a
could have more than
a
one, but
null
I say, I don't
motion.
know.
Yeah,
But-
that would be a null motion, so we can remove it.
Okay.
Thank you.
yeah, That's perfect. All right, operations, Mr. Adams, lead board liaison.
All right, letter A, middle school domestic hot water boiler replacement. Yeah, compliments on keeping us informed and the
Yeah.
effort going into that, but anything to add?
No, this was a repair that was necessary
retroactive.
to get that system back up and running, so we appreciate the support on this one to be able to do this retroactively, but there is other work as well that is active related to this project that we'll also keep the board updated on.
Okay. So we need 5, but we already voted on it and we already installed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, I'm not saying yes to that.
We can turn the water off if you want, but.
All right.
All right, and then B, the huddle agreement for a 3-year term. I'll turn that over to you as well.
This is already an existing agreement, just a renewal.
Yep.
And this is what we use for our sports programs to be broadcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We have 5? Okay.
Thank you.
Is Miss Arendt hung with us? She's on there? Okay. Miss Arendt, policy, lead board liaison? Are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. I just want to give a quick summary of the policies on the agenda. We have 610. It doesn't require action from us, but it's just a simple update of new quotation thresholds based on revisions to the school code. We have 308, the policy that defines our authority to establish clear and consistent employment conditions. We have 815.4, which is a new policy regarding personal technology use. It addresses employees' use of personal devices to ensure network security and operational efficiency. We have 823.1, focused on safety. This policy ensures we are prepared to respond to opioid overdoses on school property or during events. It authorizes naloxone acquisition and use guided by standing medical orders and trained staff. Protocols include emergency response, reporting requirements, and follow-up support for affected students. Do we have 5 to move these forward?
Yep.
Or this is the first
Question.
reading.
It's first reading.
Yeah. I do have a question on the personal technology. Do we have the same, because I was trying to look it up, but I couldn't find it, the same kind of guidance out there for anybody that would be connecting to our networks? Like, we would block a personal device that threatens the security, all of that, or?
The way Mr. Valletta has it set up, he has it under productions and desks, so it limits their ability to access our systems. So there are some safety protocols. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
Yeah.
Are you
I
saying
think
that or
makes
in
sense.
policy itself?
Would that be necessary to be in policy? I don't know. I just didn't see, and a few of the ones they reference I couldn't find, so I'll email that separately. But I just wasn't sure if we needed that to be spelled out anywhere else.
And I don't know if, I might have zoned out if Ms. Arendt, the organizational chart is there as well. But these are all just first readings, right?
The organizational chart.
I think once a year, we need to revisit the organizational chart to make sure that we're aligned. For instance, a manager was added to transportation, so the assistant manager became plural managers.
Right.
And we added an assistant director of special education. We want to make sure of how we're operating is clearly defined through policy. I don't want to piecemeal this month to month, but I think periodically, just like we have other annual reviews, we should look at it.
Perfect. Okay, so we don't need to vote on any of those this evening, and we did projects and planning, so upcoming public meeting, action.
For personnel, do we have to have 5 to move the personnel agenda forward?
I don't think,
We're good?
yeah.
Don't be typing up now
Yeah, 'cause
down
it
there,
changes.
like, we already
I
passed
know.
your item.
Well, no, I just.
It didn't have a little, it didn't have a little
Hey, we're
letter.
gonna vote on the personnel agenda. I don't know.
It will evolve between
Yeah.
now and 2 weeks, and then.
Dane, I need clarification on the policy and procedure.
We don't, right? We don't
Zip
move
it,
it
Mike.
forward. Yeah. Okay.
I wasn't sure.
All right, upcoming public action meeting, Tuesday, January 28th, 2025, 7 PM. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, be safe driving. I checked, they're still out salting the roads.
They're what?
They're still out salting the roads.
Listen, I've been driving through like the last month, it's just been like every day. Like,
The feet is snow.
it's stupid. Like, I mean, at one time, I said, Carrie, you can't come up here. Like, you can't, like, you just gotta wait till tomorrow. Like, cause you're not getting up the hill.
Well, that's what I.
And then there's been times like I'm not coming back because I won't get back here. Like, I mean.
And I was worried about our basketball team was in Indiana.
Yeah, that's, well.
You're the cheerleader.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, before you ever graduate, does like a new mascot costume fit in any of that?
It might. The Mustang's coming back to Shelby.
From the stupid
Yes.
circle of crap or
Yeah.
what?
Circle of crap.
It's going to be more out there than it has been in the past. The circle's going away.
I can't wait.
The bullseye.
I'll make a donation to make that go away.
But I'll give you an example with rebranding the sign up front where the bullseye is. Doesn't make a sense to picture the horse. We are Mustang country, we're the bullseye, have 2 horses on each side. So we're looking, I'm looking at some alternative revenue to try and.
Well, so legitimately, like, we actually need a Mustang. Like, it smells, it's gross, it's ugly, it's awful, it's old.
Yeah.
We need a new one.
Yeah,
Hi, thank you.
I'm gonna ride a Mustang in for graduation if that's all right. A real one.
Yeah. Rick, we need a new Mustang.